OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, so it's bang on 7:30. It's Wednesday morning and it's a football-free day. What are you going to do with all your spare time? You can text us 0879 180 180. That's the WhatsApp number, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. You can tweet us at Off The Ball. Shane is here. Shane, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger.
Colin is here. Colin.
Morning, guys.
How are you?
All good.
It's not good. There's 2 days without football.
The wasteland of having to speak to other human beings.
It was 17 days of consecutive football.
I know.
I'm glad for the break. We'll see if the momentum resumes on Friday. And then it's bumper again, Friday and Saturday. I think it's a time for reflection. It's a time of year for reflection. It's time for reflection in this World Cup. And I think they left us off with a very entertaining day of action yesterday, because 2 very different themed matches.
Best World Cup of your lifetime, Finney Perth. He's like,
Ooh.
I mean, it's getting there. Everything you wanted.
Yeah. It still needs a big quarter-final, semi-final surge in order to top that list from me.
Yesterday, when you think about it, was one of those like big days in world football history where they dropped the most famous man on the planet and his replacement is a kid who scores 3 goals, who made his debut in September for the senior team.
I actually have to say I've been a big fan of this Gonçalo Ramos guy for since about 7:20 last night. Massive fan of him. I think he's a proper player.
Looks a lot older than his 21 years.
Doesn't he? Yeah. Doesn't he just?
He's a grown-ass man.
He is. And it wasn't just the fact that he scored a hat-trick, it was the nature of the hat-trick.
Yeah.
That first goal, like, ridiculous. Sorry, Colin, I know what you're going to say. Go on, say it.
It's the best open play goal of the tournament so far. 100%.
Richarlison
The best open play goal. Only second to Chavez overall. But
so the free kick is your number
1
one?
100, but I don't think it'll be beaten. And actually, not to beat the football or anything, but Kev Kilban admitted that to Adrian Barry afterwards, being like, actually, that Chavez free kick was the best free kick he's ever seen in the World Cup. And I was like, it's totally the best goal of the tournament.
He did say Richarlison's goal was better.
But Chavez is the best goal. And then Ramos's open play goal is just because it was so unexpected.
Abubakar's little lob as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Though they're all contenders. Look, plenty would say Richarlison, and that's totally fair. Yeah. But I know it was just the sudden nature of the shot and the goalkeeper. Like Mick McCarthy was in here watching it live in the news round, and he was, I think the keeper could have done better at the near post.
No.
And then Joe Malloy and Anne-Marie Donald were like, oh my God, no! Look at the speed of the shot. And then Mick was like, yeah, actually, Jesus,
15
ferocious.
59 miles per hour. It took 0.44 seconds to get from the boot to the goal. It was ridiculous. It couldn't have been any more top corner. Like proper striker's finish.
And the good news for Portugal is it was all 3 times of different goals. Like the second was the poacher near post, put it under the legs, and then the third one was put through was the slightly heavy touch, but his momentum was carrying towards the ball with the ball going away from you. Very easy for it to hit off the keeper and come back out, but just a very, very delicate little dink. Just like dug his foot into the ball, so it just kept him going. Lovely. And also his lack of surprise by any of these goals.
He
looked completely
born to do
by
this
stage. Meanwhile, the camera is panning to the most famous man in the world, absolutely livid at the situation.
Well, in fairness, he did celebrate. I did wonder, is he part of the bench is emptied, or has it? Yes, it has.
Yeah,
in fairness,
including him.
He did know that the right thing to do here is to get off his ass and go and celebrate, and then. But it's an amazing little psychodrama, and fair play to the head coach, who obviously was like buoyed up by the poll, which everybody kept mentioning during the coverage. Like, yeah, fair enough, okay. Maybe referendums are exactly how we should do things in future. That really works well in democracies, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah, it usually does. I don't know how Ronaldo, now he knows he's the problem, because Portugal played better without him. United played better without him. This Saudi Arabian club, Al Nassr, will probably play better without him. Maybe not. But yeah, all of a sudden he's probably realising, okay, Fernando Santos and Eric Ten Hag can't both be wrong. They can't both be wrong. Like, Santos has been his guy for 8 years in charge, and he's been his supporter, his defender, his person that put up with all his petulance and arrogance. And all of a sudden now he's sitting on the bench going, okay, even Fernando Santos doesn't want me anymore. It's like now he, I think, realises it's the end of an era. Now, don't get me wrong, Ronaldo will still potentially have a role to play in this.
I think so. I have no doubt. Yeah.
I think it will strengthen his resolve of anything being left out again.
Yeah,
I think it will just. I think it will add to his motivation to prove everybody wrong.
But he can start against Morocco and score a hat-trick himself.
Well, he won't.
Well, he won't. But I mean,
he could come off the bench and score a header to win the game for them. Yeah. Absolutely, you wouldn't be terribly surprised about that, would you?
No.
And if there's a Morocco defence, we'll talk about it now if you want, but they've been amazing. So there's a good chance that's 0-0 as well, right?
Yeah. You could tell from the outset of the Morocco-Spain game, this team are set up very defensively.
Does he wait to take the 5th? It didn't get to the 5th for Spain.
Yeah.
No, I think he'll go first, won't he? Yeah, I think
Penalty wise,
yeah.
No, Ronaldo is a glory hunter. He'll go for number 5.
I think he might be worried that he won't get there because, you know, as he's realised in the last 6 months, his career is flashing away before his eyes, and he'll want to in some way be in the limelight. Sure, look, like that header that he didn't score but he claimed to score, like, this guy's a phenomenal actor, and like the celebration yesterday was like him, like, I'm going to put on my best performance, which kind of, you know, there's a bit of an intrigue about him in that he has this, you know, he has that kind of maniacal smile when he misses something or something goes wrong. Yeah. You'd love to really know what goes behind the scenes.
I do think that there's a slight difference for Portugal and whatever was going on, because there's no escape from this. Like, he can't divorce Portugal the way he can divorce Manchester United. So there's definitely a bit where the international coach has something that Ronaldo needs and wants, and so therefore he has to be part of the team, as opposed to at Manchester United. Once Ten Hag came in, it was clear that he wasn't going to have any influence, that he was no longer chosen or favoured, and so therefore it didn't really matter. Like, that divorce, he's already left Man United fans once, he can do that again. Can't leave Portugal, that's his home. You know,
it was the first time Ronaldo came on as a substitute for Portugal since he was a teenager.
Jesus.
Yeah, and you know that would have hurt definitely for a World Cup knockout game. And at the same time, look, for his ego, the one thing that would help him is that when he was preparing to come on as a substitute, when he stood off the bench, took off his tracksuit, the noise from the TV was it was as if another goal was scored, and the noise was quite sustained over a few seconds. Now, I don't know, look, the Portugal fans had it all. They had a win-win situation. Their team was absolutely annihilating a handy Switzerland team on paper that didn't turn up at all in the night, so it's very comfortable. It was a good time to bring him on, but at the same time there was this poll done in Portugal: would you drop Cristiano Ronaldo? And it was an overwhelming yes, I would drop Ronaldo ahead of the game. So I don't know, you know, Andy Mitten's off and on saying match-going fans are very different to online fans or fans that just aren't going to the game, so it could have been a split poll anyway, but it did seem to me that, look, it's a good time to bring Ronaldo on, so we'll cheer him for the legend that he is. But he can't start the next game now. He can't. They have to pick the same 11 if everybody's fit. It
was very smart by Fernando Santos to bring him on 73, 74 minutes. Like, bringing him on 84, 85 is getting dangerously close to Ronaldo.
Well, if he had heard the Piers Morgan interview, he was like, I don't do 3 minutes.
I don't do cameos.
Alluding to the Tottenham game where he refused to come on. So yeah, Andy McCoy is saying it in commentary, being like, you need to bring him on now, it had to happen. Within 2 minutes he was on the pitch.
A lot of people hypothesising on Twitter last night the potential scenario of the Argentina-Portugal final where Messi runs riot and Ronaldo sits on the bench. That, I mean, but cruel irony for Ronaldo.
Well, if it gets to 3-0, they're bringing him on, because that's an emergency. So
yeah, he's not starting any other game, right? If everybody's fit,
barring injury, yeah.
No, he can't now.
He can't, surely, and he must realise that now.
But there's a good chance players get injured. It's a World Cup.
Totally, yeah. But if they don't, like, Ramos looks fit and well, and everything's going smoothly for him, and he's 21, never been fitter in the prime of his life.
Sorry, he'd only played 33 minutes of international football.
Incredible.
That was his first, 67 minutes to score your first World Cup hat-trick.
He scored 14 goals this season for Benfica, who are running away with the Portuguese league, 8 points clear, and last season he was Darwin Núñez's understudy, so he's come to the fore now. He was Núñez and Ronaldo's understudy, and now he's the main man overnight.
I see someone saying Southampton in the summer were in for Gonçalo Ramos and Cody Gakpo.
Wow.
And obviously now they're absolutely not in the running whatsoever.
He ran fast and knew what he was doing. He's gone now. Exactly. He knew what he wanted. He's no more. But with Ramos, look, I think it's Jamie Carragher who said that all great players in history always do something special the first time you see them. So it's boding well for Ramos, but at the same time, you know, Federico Macheda did something special the first time he saw him against Aston Villa. And go both ways.
I mean, his goal scoring record at all levels.
Exactly, it is looking good. Yeah, for a young man who, as we already said, looks so much older than he is and carries himself older and has a maturity and a self-confidence about him.
If Benfica could have just kept all their players, it's the hoariest old cliche in world football, but if they could have just kept their players.
There's an argument for experience on the pitch as well, because you have you look at Spain's penalties and you look at Spain generally yesterday and you're like, was it youth that lost it for them? Like, Sarabia, could have won it with the last kick of the game.
What we were saying in the pre-show meeting, like that, so Sarabia's brought on to take the penalties, good penalty taker. He misses the chance to win the game for Spain. It's a good volley, hits the post.
He did well.
It's a heartbreaking moment for him. He gets head in his hands. Oh my God, I could have won the game.
He couldn't have hit it much better.
No, I think it was a good effort.
Yeah, but he missed.
He missed, of course. That's undeniable. Like, missed, and he was like, oh my God, I could have won the game for my country to send us through to the next round, but I didn't. And within 2 minutes, he's taken the first penalty. And I was saying the pre-show, there's obviously no witnesses there. I was watching the game on my own, being like, this guy is going to miss this penalty. He literally just missed the chance to win the game. He's going to miss this penalty. Now, I thought it was a well-struck penalty. Hit the post.
Colm.
Very unlucky.
Colm.
Very unlucky.
It's not a well struck penalty if you miss.
I disagree.
If you hit the post, it's a bad penalty because it's not within the confines of the net.
I thought it was very well hit, and he hit the post and was like, okay,
you mean very well hit as in his contact was good?
Yeah, and
but you could hit the ball very well and hit the corner flag from a penalty.
No.
That connection.
No,
was great.
I obviously don't mean that. Like, I mean, he knew what he was trying to do, bottom right,
and didn't do it.
And didn't do it, and he missed. But he missed. But
so
I didn't think it was a bad penalty. Anyway, I was like, he's going to miss, and then Soller was up next, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy doesn't want to take the penalty.
He honestly looked like a kid. First day of school, like he was terrified.
But as Cameron Hill pointed out and repeats something to everybody, probably the stat of the morning so far is that the only country that Spain have beaten on penalties in the World Cup.
Don't.
2002.
They were crap in that shootout as well.
Shea Given. So that's 2 penalty shootouts in a row for international tournaments that Spain are getting eliminated on. And Luis Enrique, the Spain manager, says you have to take 1,000 penalties for me if you want to be in this team. And look what's happened. For such technicians, like, their possession is incredible. Nobody can get the ball off them, but they have no penetration themselves in the final third. And then when it comes to the ultimate nerve test, they've been left lacking twice, whereas Morocco just looked completely determined to bar that one penalty.
I'm sure Gavi, he would have practiced penalties, and yet he's not in the pitch for the shootout. Like,
taken off after an hour.
A lot of hate for Gavi on Twitter. It turns out Twitter hates Gavi. Miguel Delaney was tweeting about Gavi and he got serious amount of abuse for it. People say, like, I don't know if it's the young generation who are just into other players like Mbappe and Haaland and don't like seeing Gavi compared to the best in the world. But there's a little bit of hate.
You're blaming the Mbappe stands. They might come for you.
Yeah, 100%. Be careful what you say about Mbappe or Haaland. Or Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo's...
Or Taylor Swift.
Yeah, as it turns out. And Harry Styles is in that group as well.
Do we still have the FIFA team that Owen didn't pick them both in and did like a million retweets where people were calling him stupid and other worse things that we can't say in the morning. What else, Shane? Where else are we going?
We're missing Bono, so we need to touch on Bono as well. Bono, Yusuf Bunu, and however you want to pronounce his name to fit in your U2 references. The smirk he had on his face throughout the entire shootout just led me. I was like, from the get-go, you're like, this guy's.
That's a good point. Yeah,
he couldn't stop smiling, which was fantastic. He was like Dwight York standing in goal, just smirking away
between penalties.
And every time he saved it, he would just smirk and look at the crowd, look at the camera, and kind of glance.
Look, Morocco were very defensively intimidating. Look, they've only conceded 1 goal in 4 games in this tournament, and that was an own goal, the only own goal of the tournament so far, and he didn't even concede a penalty in the shootout. They're impenetrable.
I was looking at their record. So Morocco's record under him so far, he took charge of Valide Uruguay on August 31st. 2-0 win against Chile, 0-0 against Paraguay, 3-0 win against Georgia, 0-0 against Croatia, 2-0 win against Belgium, 2-1 against Canada. That was an own goal, and then the 0-0 last night. They just don't concede goals. That's a concern for Portugal, but so it's clash of styles. It's free scoring Portugal against a very defensive minded Morocco. There was the great clip, lads, I don't know if you saw it online as well last night, where Irish poet royalty, I guess you could call it, was called out on Fox Sports.
More playwright, but go on,
more playwright, sorry, Here's the clip.
Out to the stadium enjoying Tom Ronaldo.
Rob, there's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. The iconic Irish writer Oscar Wilde said that. Don't know if he was a soccer fan, but he definitely would have been a fan of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Who's the laugh?
It was a Chris O'Dowd, yeah. If it was Chris O'Dowd certainly tweeted it. I don't know if it was himself that recorded it.
I think it was.
Yeah, it's on his page. That's the look at his gaff, like, look at that, his TV.
I mean, sorry, playwright, of course, Oscar Wilde.
Well, I mean, the Ballad of Reading Jail is very good. I'm not disputing, so let's not get into the
technicalities of Oscar Wilde's life. But apparently he would have been a big fan of Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, that's Alan Partridge, David Brent stuff there from Fox Sports. They probably were thinking, nobody Irish is going to watch this or see this or correct me on this.
Somebody in the responses had actually dug out a quote from Wilde about football. Football is all very well as a game for rough girls, but it's hardly suitable for delicate boys. So,
jeez,
he is a fan of football.
He is a fan of football, and like whether or not he would have been a fan of Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't know. I'm sure he might have been.
I mean, he's not the only. It was a good 24 hours for the Nobel laureates, Irish writers, because another one got a subtle reference
call out
in the Irish Times this morning. An unlikely source, you know. Normally you'd hear Kev singing rebel songs.
Yeah.
in the opening paragraph, France to beat England, and not because of Kylian Mbappe, but because Kyle Walker will be isolated against him. Antoine Griezmann, Olivier Giroud and Ousmane Dembele also need minding. The centre cannot hold. WB8s, there you go.
Well, there you go. The importance of being earnest, wasn't that Wild?
Yeah.
Like, Ronaldo could take lessons from some of Wild's works, perhaps, and be more earnest.
To
more
fall out
sincere.
with one club is unfortunate. To fall out with two clubs in the space of 6 weeks is beginning to look.
There you go.
What's the rest of it?
Forget your U2 references. It's all about the Oscar Wilde.
The beauty of that segue is the reporter set himself up nicely because it's like a template. He could use any name at the end there. That was fantastic.
Carelessness.
Go to anyone.
Sorry, go on. Yeah,
Beginning to look like carelessness.
To anyone. But I
You're
know
like, what's he talking about? Is he still talking?
the Morocco reaction.
Leave insert
The
palpitations.
Morocco reaction was incredible around the world. We actually have a video of it there.
Yeah.
This is Trafalgar Square.
Jesus.
Last night after the match, for people who can't see, a lot of people gathered in Trafalgar Square.
Palestine flag.
In a pyramid form almost, going upwards. Incredible.
The Palestine flag has been everywhere during this World Cup as well. A lot of the countries kind of putting it forward.
But it's remarkable, and like such a huge Moroccan diaspora in the world. Like I think 17 of the squad are born outside of the region, and Hakimi, who struck the winning penalty, was raised in Madrid. You know, they're represented everywhere.
Yeah.
But like
that winning penalty. Sorry, but I mean, nerves of steel.
Helped by the fact that the Spanish goalkeeper Unai Simon was diving like 4 hours before every penalty and making everybody's mind up for them, with the exception of the one he saved because he dived correctly and guessed. But like for Hakimi's Peneka, honest to God, look back and Simon's gone when Hakimi's running up.
Well, he was going to the shops. He was going to the shops.
It's a short run up.
Yeah.
Please score. Please knock us out.
Lovely kick.
Kev's columns, by the way, in the New York Times have been excellent. You're all going to say I'm biased. I am biased, but you should still read them because they're excellent. The quote properly, not to butcher it, is: to lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. To lose one relationship with a fan base may look...
I see what you did there. I wonder what Kev's next be about. The Spain penalty shootout. I'm sure he'll...
Oh, no, I can't bring it up.
Can't go there, no.
How did his penalty go? Does anybody remember? It's blocked from my mind. I can't remember. He must have scored.
No.
I'd put him down for a goal. That's what...
Yeah, I remember chatting recently to David Connolly on Football Saturday, and he was like, he was backing himself. He'd been kind of he had a decent penalty record at club level and stuff, and was confident walking up, and then shit hits the fan, and we all know what happened next. Was it just Connolly and Killer that missed the penalties for Ireland? Or there was more, wasn't it? It was 3-2 on penalties. It was just, and then Hart, of course, missed it in normal time. It was
Ian Hart was like basically on one leg at that stage, so he's fairly sure he had a couple of injections, and so shouldn't have been taken in the first place.
Fair point.
But anyway, maybe.
Penalty,
we're not bitter about this.
No, not at all.
Spain, of course, basically down to 10 men because David Albelda had a twisted testicle and was rolling around the place in agony. Apparently one of the sorest things that can happen to you.
I'd imagine so.
And none of the Irish team realised that they had a man advantage in extra time against Spain when this occurred.
Well, none of the Irish management team.
Yeah.
Yes. That guy looks a bit sore, doesn't he? Rolling around the place there, screaming in agony. It's fine, but let's defend, whatever we do.
Yeah.
Finnan, someone says Steve Finnan missed. No, then someone says Finnan scored. Doesn't matter. We'll find out. But yeah.
Well, there's a thing called Google, we could just look it up.
Could just look it up, you know. It will be.
I'm usually looking up there if you want to talk.
You're doing it there, talking about yourself. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, the hurling club All-Ireland final. Ballygunner against Ballyhale being clashed.
Semi-final.
Sorry, clashing.
That's bulletin board material.
Apologies.
For both St Thomas's and Dunloy. These border county people.
Oh, but is it the
not
final?
Really involved? I don't understand.
It could be the final.
Is it the real final? No, it's not. It's the semi-final. It's the semi-final doubleheader.
You're right.
It is. Look.
Sorry. Yeah. Stick that in your wall. It is half past.
of that.
It's 3:30 on the day of the World Cup final. World Cup final's at 3:00, I think, our time. So, I mean, it's not great. But the fact of the matter is, the Camogie finals are on the Saturday, so they can't do them on the Saturday. Separate stadiums out of commission for repair work. So it's forcing the GAA's hand a little bit, so I understand why they have to clash it, but maybe they could have changed the throw-in times. Well, possibly not.
The St Thomas's game couldn't go on the Saturday because there's a wedding there, so they could have put that one on the Sunday. It doesn't have to be a double header. The other game could have been on the Saturday.
Do it at 1 o'clock.
There's a way around it, surely.
Yeah. Get the fans out of Croke Park in for the World Cup final.
This could be one of the all-time great club hurling matches.
Yeah.
Like, it really could be. Mm-hmm. And the audience is going to be massively diminished.
Yeah. Don't tell me there's no crossover between hurling fans and World Cup fans, because there is. I guarantee it's going to affect the crowd 100%. A lot of Ballygunner and Ballyhale fans will want to watch the World Cup final, so it's undoubtedly going to affect the crowd. now maybe the GA will come out and change it.
Too
I don't
late
think
now.
they will.
No, that's the official announcement.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. So it's TJ Reid or Kylian Mbappe, Desi Hutchinson or Neymar, as the Irish Daily Mail put it in the back. Make your choice. You can't have both. That's tough, though.
Correctly pointed out in the live comments, Robbie Keane and Stephen did score against Spain in the penalty shootout.
Who did?
Robbie Keane and Stephen scored the first and last Irish penalty in the shootout.
Right.
Who have we already named that missed?
Conley and Kilban.
And who was the other penalty misser?
Conley and Kilban, wasn't it?
Kinsler?
Oh, there was a third.
There was
Holland,
a third.
Matty Holland.
Matty Holland.
Oh, yes.
Took the second penalty. Now, it seems that the people in the comments are very interested in this, so I'll put it out there for the people. Can anyone tell me who missed for Spain in the shootout? Because there were 2 players who missed for Spain, which I did not realise. 2 players missed. I'm going to put it out there. We can get back to it if you like. But I was surprised by it. I thought Spain were all over.
You know, so you know the names. They're not like...
Oh, these are well-known players of the era. I'm not saying that they're legendary, iconic players that will go down in the history of football, but if you knew your football from that time, you would know these 2 players.
Because they Raul and Luis Enrique, and then you're like, well, they're not iconic.
Guti didn't miss, did he?
Neither played. No, Guti didn't take one. These 2 players played at the same club at the time, and that club at that time were very fashionable in Europe.
Valencia.
They're no longer. I don't even think they're in La Liga anymore. But at the time, they had a very, very good team in the Champions League. Deportivo La Coruña.
Oh.
And the 2 players were good stuff.
Did Fernando Hierro play for?
No. He took the first penalty and scored.
Tristan?
No, he didn't take one.
He wasn't Spanish, I don't think.
He didn't take one. Ruben Baraja of Valencia took the second and scored.
Okay.
And then penalty 3 and 4 by Spain were missed before Gaisca Mendieta broke our hearts.
Chance to win.
And we want to know this morning who missed the penalties 3 and 4. Spectacor is saying Joaquin missed. That is not true. I'm afraid. And Spectacor, the top is Satellite Taxis FC, not Baca Juniors. Thank you for the question.
Every day I come in and it's like, oh, he's wearing his pocket top again, and then I remember that there's a really boring backstory to this. Whoa! He's just dying to be asked.
It's like the Spa Grand Prix.
It's like, were you at the Grand Prix?
Go on, Satellite Taxis.
I've already done it, Ger. I've already done that. I don't even think you were here for it. I have told people the
oh no, I was here for it. We had to get somebody on from Satellite Taxis. It was like such a
big
deal.
Yeah, people were getting on, and the Cork Business League were getting on to us. I got a thumbs up there. Right. Very exciting.
7:52 this morning. Guillem Balague joins us. Guillem, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning. I'm okay.
We the bit that you missed there while we were setting you up on Zoom was we were actually going through a penalty shootout that Spain won in the round of last 16 just to torment ourselves here in Ireland. It's the only time that you've won a penalty shootout in the World Cup, and it happened to be against us.
Yeah. I mean, the bad stats accumulate. You know how many games we won since 2010? Just we've been in 3 World Cups since. Have a guess. How many games we won since 2010? In that World Cup.
Jesus, it's none. In the knockout stages?
3.
Or generally?
No, in group stages, knockout stages. Just 3.
Yeah.
Just 3. Against Iran, Australia and Costa Rica. So I'm starting to think that 2010 was the exception to the rule. That actually we're not that good when it comes to the World Cup.
And yet it all started so brilliantly with the best young players in the world announcing themselves on the global stage, and it felt like it was going to be a month of those teenage and just out of teen tyros. Where did the great form of the opening match, how did that dissipate?
It may have felt to you that was the beginning of a great journey. It didn't feel to me at all, and there was not much trepidation in Spain with this team either. The fact that Gavi was considered one of the best youngsters in the world is something that surprised me a little bit. Because yes, he's very busy and takes, steals possession and does a lot of other things, but he's not at the level of Musiala or Bellingham or Pedri. Pedri, yes, but generally, it just felt like we were trying to reproduce an idea that was successful in 2010 because of the players we had. Yes, because of the idea as well, but especially because of the players we had. And as the tournament progressed, what was happening is that we were actually losing power. So we scored the first goal against Costa Rica and scored 6 more. We scored the first goal against Germany, but we could have lost that game. It was a draw. We scored the first goal against Japan and lost the game. And we couldn't score one single goal against Morocco in 130 minutes of time, if you count the injury time. So along the way, you could see why it was never going to happen in this World Cup. And there's a long list of things that I can just I've got it in my head. So whenever you wanted, I'll put them out there.
Yeah, go on. Tell us what those long list of things are.
We don't have a striker. We decided not to have a striker to actually hold the ball when we are under pressure, or to that can finish crosses. So we didn't put crosses in. We don't shoot from outside the box. Our tempo, our rhythm, which is such an important thing for a style like ours, 1-2 football is what it should be, moving the ball around from side to side quickly to create spaces. None of that was happening. Physically, we are weaker than most oppositions. We're not very pacey up front either. We had to put a centre midfield as a centre back, and actually that didn't work too bad with Rodri. But in any case, we used the same midfield all along, when you could see, as I said, that we were not controlling. We had possession, but weren't controlling what was happening on the pitch. We're not very good at set pieces. We didn't have alternatives when things didn't work our way, and we always knew we were going to suffer against Japan or against Morocco, those teams that defend not very low, but in the middle of the park with lines very close together, with no intention of having the ball. We always knew we were going to suffer against that. What is the alternative to that? There was none. And we had a manager that personally, I think, is growing on me and on everybody else with Twitch and his conversations on Twitch, and just generally because he does this thing which is very useful right now, which is that he doesn't give too much importance to things. This is a game. Football is just a game. I'm happy with that, no problem. But of course, he also had this fundamentalist way of doing things. It's his way or no way, which meant that he fitted in the squad players that weren't the best, but were the best for his idea, which meant that we had to leave home some players that have been shining in recent months and would have offered something different. So, okay, we tried that now. It worked well in the European Championships, you have to say. In the Nations League, is working well as well. But for whatever reason, and that's where we all have to, add in this debate, for whatever reason, in the World Cup, it's just failure after failure, continuing with the same idea. Is this idea obsolete? I think it is. I think partly it is. And we have to update it. Luis Enrique didn't manage to do that.
And so that's a big question then, obviously, if he's fundamentalist in his belief in the system, which has not worked at this time, can he change? And is it right that he be given the opportunity to change? Or is it actually better for everybody if he goes and has his fundamentalist system at a club where he can actually impact it week in, week out, day in, day out?
A lot of things there. One, I do believe that if he had an opportunity to go to the Premier League tomorrow, he will do that. His contract finishes after the World Cup. After this World Cup. But there is no opening. That's the first one. Secondly, he wants to honour the relationship that he's developed with the president of the federation and Molina, the director of football. In that, he says, he will be there all his life. And you know what? There is something to say about some learning from mistakes and the same manager to continue a project. I don't have much opposition to that, and if it's Luis Enrique, even better. But under the condition that he looks at what's happened and he's more flexible. When he went to Barcelona in his first season in January, there's this famous story in that Messi comes back late from holidays with the permission of the club. But then that meant that against Real Sociedad, first game of the year, this is the Christmas holidays, he stays on the bench. He didn't like that. Next training session, there's a bit of a clash between Luis Enrique and Messi. And Luis Enrique, his first intuition was like to punish Messi. He gets told, actually, be more flexible, but becomes more flexible, changes some of the perceptions that he had and some of the rules that he has. And Barcelona won everything, Champions League, League, Cup. That flexibility is necessary here now. So if he wants to continue, and the federation will have to determine that, it's in the federation's hands, of course, he will have to just come up with new ideas. But I do feel that you have more opportunity to do so, as you just mentioned, at club level. And I would like to see Luis Enrique at club level if he finds he has the energy for it now, and that everything in his life allows him to spend time away, because he wants to go abroad. He wants to go to the Premier League, possibly bringing his family. But that is very, very important part of his life, of course. So it's up in the air what happens next. If you ask me, I'm the president of the federation. I would say, okay, Luis Enrique, I'll give you until the Euros because he's in a year and a half. But you have to be more flexible.
How will the Spanish media generally react to this game? Like, will there be a fall guy? Will it be Enrique or Pablo Sarabia for missing the chance at the end, or any of the three who missed the penalties?
The first thing, let me give you the context. You are with Luis Enrique or against Luis Enrique. And most of the press are very much against Luis Enrique because of the way he behaves with the media. I've had the best experiences with Luis Enrique. I've got no complaint personally, but I know that, for instance, in the preview, in the press conference just before the game against Morocco, he picked every question and had a comment on the question, like, that's a cliche, that's a stupid question, that's, you obviously don't know anything about football, which was not necessary. He was doing it for a reason, I imagine, to absorb all pressure, to distract the attention, I don't know. But obviously the media who makes the question and have prepared it, and they weren't bad questions, some of them, is like, again, what you need to behave like that? So with that in mind, it's that easy to go from there to headlines that says failure and him to be blamed for the failure. Nothing is innocent in this world. So, yeah, there is a lot of criticisms in Spain. Radio shows, the midnight radio shows are huge, and they set the agenda. So I listened to some of them, and you could see that there was payback time, and there was a lot of it's down to Luis Enrique, it's down to the way he does things. He doesn't need to be like that. He doesn't need to treat us like that. As he treated the media was relevant to the result, but certainly it's relevant to the media. And when they have to judge, that stays in the back of their minds. But generally, the headlines, yes, it's about, it's another failure. It's only you accumulate reasons to say that, okay, 2010 was great, but before that, we just couldn't manage to get past the quarterfinals. And after that, we haven't been able to pass the last 16. So we don't compete well at world stage. Why is that? And what do we have to do now to change that? It's in the hands of the federation again. The alternative to Luis Enrique, which will be more of the same, perhaps a little bit more flexible, it may be Marcelino, which is like going to another extreme. Marcelino, former Valencia and Athletic Club manager, who likes much more direct football, 4-4-2, solid 4-4-2, always 4-4-2, with a couple of forwards, a tall one and a short one, and it's simple football, but likes counter-attack, likes defending deep, and likes to do a lot of things that we haven't done. But I don't know if we have the players for it again. So I'm confused about what has to come next.
It's always the way after a defeat like this, where there's a national outpouring and an inquest, and you've been very good with your time. The point of him being on Twitch, I think, is also a bit of a stroke of genius, in that it gives the fans access to his actual innermost thoughts without the interpreter in the middle of the media. And I suspect that's one of the other reasons why the media are a little bit upset. It's like, hang on a second, how are you getting your message out there without us to interpret it? So it's a very complicated situation you have at the moment.
Yes, but you made a very good point. No filters, he says. Yeah, I'll come to you with no filters. That was his message at the beginning of his Twitch career. And all the money that he was making, and he's got like 200,000 followers already. He goes for charity. So we've seen a completely different side to it. I wrote, having listened to must be like 12 hours of twitching that he's done. I did a piece for BBC in which he comes out with, you could have gone so many ways. He talks about formation, development of players. He talks about relationship to his pupils, to his players. He talks about his relationship to football, what's important to him in life. A lot of things that you can get a book out of from that. But yeah, he was pushing the media aside. It was a very interesting way of communicating. And you know what? If the federations of all the nations are brave enough, it's a great way of getting people engaged. There wasn't much attraction for this national side. There wasn't screens in the streets, and people weren't meeting in bars. I think partly in a big percentage because it's winter. It just doesn't feel like a World Cup from that point of view. There wasn't in Spain the negative press that you got in the UK and in other parts of the world. I think that's wrong. I think we didn't really analyse the World Cup properly. We just thought it was just a football tournament. But in any case, what that meant, plus the winter, plus the fact that the national side weren't that attractive, it just meant that there wasn't enough interest, and I don't know how much of that plays a part because we are miles away from Qatar. But in any case, it meant that somehow we needed to get engaged, and Luis Enrique managed to do that in a big way through his conversations on Twitch. But all the managers should do that. They shouldn't be scared of it. But it's difficult to stop saying certain things. So I guess managers prefer just to go to the press conference, avoid that and move on.
Guillem, you've been great with your time. Thanks so much, and we're sorry for your trouble.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
We'll go on, though.
Exactly. We've no choice. Brilliant stuff from Guillem Balague there this morning in reaction to... I was really disappointed. I thought that team was going to reach some kind of firing and outpouring. I mean, I'd love Luis Enrique in the Premier League. I would.
Especially if he's twitching and putting...
I mean, that'd be mad, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I say it would be mad, but it's like what loads of other... It's just that it's never a manager who does it. It's
not the Premier League culture either. Like it seems to be more of a continental thing, to be more open.
But like, I'd also love him to stay at Spain and have success and take this young team through to the Euros and then ultimately the next World Cup. Right, it's competition time here on OTB AM. The Leopardstown Christmas Festival takes place from December 26th to the 29th, so Stephen's Day for the next few days after that, and it's a great day out for sports fans, socialites and thrill seekers alike. Every day this week we have 2 hospitality places for the Leopardstown Pavilion to give away. You'll get a reserved table, lunch, chat and tips from top tipsters and much more besides. To enter, comment with a crying laughing emoji on our main Twitter page @OffTheBall and you're automatically in the hat. Please remember to ensure that your DMs are open because that's how we will contact you, and everybody likes to have their DMs slid into to say, hey, we've got some stuff for you. And we actually do have some stuff for you. The Leopardstown Christmas Festival, December 26th, 29th, tickets from €35 available at leopardstown.com. After this short break, Keith Wood's on the line as Steve Borthwick is set to replace his mentor Eddie Jones in the England hot seat.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Club Championship Show on OTB Sports.
I always used to give Owen Sheehan a good bit of grief for his power rankings. They aren't easy, Will. I have Kilmacud Crokes as the number 1 team in the country.
As a group, as players, we have not done 1 minute of video analysis of any team this year.
Don't miss a moment of the GA Club Championship. Download the OTB Sports app, subscribe to the GA podcast feed and watch the Club Championship Show every Wednesday across OTB's social channels.
Are you a sports fanatic who loves to travel? Then sportspass.ie is for you. Log on for the chance to win the trip of a lifetime in 2023 to a top global sporting event. 8 winners get to choose from 12 incredible prizes, including trips to the Women's World Cup in Australia, the Super Bowl, the Masters and WrestleMania. All prizes include return flights, accommodation and tickets for 2 people from anywhere in the world. That's sportspass.ie. You win, you choose.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar. Right, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Keith Wood is with us. Keith, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Nice quiet week in rugby. We don't get this very often. We certainly don't get one, but when 2 come along like Dublin buses, it's amazing.
Yeah, pretty crazy on the back of the autumn international, seeing 2 international coaches going down the Swanee. It's been pretty crazy actually.
But was Brian Ashton kicked out after a November internationals? It's in my head for some reason. I can't actually remember now off the top of my head. But the November internationals are supposed to not be that important in the grand scheme of things. Like, you don't play for a trophy, you don't really get any prize money. The games happen, And there's supposed to be like an opportunity for us all to measure ourselves against the best from the other hemisphere. But now it's costing people their jobs.
Yeah, I was trying to think my way through that over the last couple of weeks, because I think we called pretty much both of these a couple of weeks ago because of the pressure that the teams were under. But I think you have to take. You may not be playing for a title, but I think it comes down to the idea that the fans and the sort of contract with the fans is that you perform at your best and you try and win all the time. And from England's perspective in particular, every single time Eddie Jones came out, he said, well, look, we're preparing for the World Cup. And it almost felt as if he was obsessed with that idea that it was that over all else. But that's only once every 4 years. And I will say from an IRFU perspective that Ireland has consistently said we have to win every game that we go and play. Now, they don't always win it, but they try, and they tend not to take too many things for granted. I felt the booing coming off after the last game, and I thought Eddie Jones' reaction to that, he just didn't gauge that sense of feeling that was out there that this wasn't good enough. And the idea was that he said that he didn't care what people thought. Well, he probably cares now, I think. And you know, I think sometimes you can be so isolated in that bubble, in that you're not taking a full view of the sentiment that happens around. And look, the reality of sport's a very unusual business. It's a kind of crazy business that may or may not make money, is incredibly hard to make money with it, but its shareholders are fans that pay a bit of money to turn up and see people perform all the time. And if they don't, they get the chance to make their voices heard. So look, I think it's a really strange moment in time. There was a huge amount of criticism in the last couple of weeks about the lack of entertainment at the English games, about the fact that people were having to pay 140, 45 quid to go to a match, that is a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, and that what was being shown on the pitch was just not what people were actually willing to pay for. So he's gone, and like I have to say, gone 10 months out is very unusual. I think it feels as if he may have lost some of the players, but I don't really know, and I haven't spoken to any of the players. We're kind of speculating from the outside in. I will say that from watching rugby for pretty much all my life and watching Eddie, and I don't know him, I've met him a couple of times, but I don't know him really. Eddie, for the first 2 years in every single job he has had unbelievable success. But the sustainability of that over a longer period of time is where he seems to have come a cropper. So I think his chance and his opportunity was to win in the World Cup in 2019. I was at those two games, the semi-final and the final, that they won and lost. They played beyond the best I've ever seen England play in a semi-final. And then they got blown away in the final. And I think he had put all his eggs pretty much in that basket, and he's had to try and figure out how to do it for the last 4 years. And he's had some success in the 4 years, but in this last year, a lot of what he's been saying sounded a little bit hollow.
Keith, Clive Woodward has had plenty to say on Eddie Jones in recent weeks and during his tenure. Like he made the point that he maybe loses focus on the game by game and has the big picture thoughts ahead of the World Cup. Is there an argument in there somewhere that maybe he's too focused on the big picture?
Oh, I think so. I think that's a very valid element. And I remember having a conversation with Philip Brown a long time ago, who was chief executive of the IRFU, and his view was the bread and butter is the Six Nations. It's what funds pretty much everything, and you have to concentrate on that. And the further up you are there, the better it is. And it is the bedrock of all the financials for the game in Ireland. And yes, you do want to be at the top table of always, but you can't sacrifice it. So there's a balancing act that has to happen there. And I do think that's fair. I mean, Eddie was incredibly successful with England. And like, I'll go back and say that game England against Ireland in Twickenham, which was a very, or even the one in Dublin the year afterwards. Sorry, the one in Dublin, where England turned up and just blew Ireland away. I think that was 2018, maybe 19. Again, that was a performance that was with a fairly set team that were on the top of the ground. He has chopped and changed relentlessly since, and we would say, and we've discussed this always, that consistency is key in selection. There's been no consistency in his selection. So the amount of players that have been tried and discarded. So look, I think there's a lot of people would be fans of his, and there's a lot of people that may not have had the chance to almost be fans of his as players. I think there's a lot of guys were brought in and went very, very quickly.
I think it's like we enjoyed the caricature of him and his dealings with the press on the show. So it's going to sound hypocritical, but I do think that it's actually a more complex character than that. The accusations that came out about how he managed his staff and how difficult it was to be somebody on his team were never properly refuted. They never presented a case that said, no, that's all nonsense, that's just somebody who's disaffected, because there was so many people who found that it was difficult to work with, that his manner was too abrupt, that the interpersonal relationships with the people who were carrying out the day-to-day that makes his role successful weren't enjoying it and didn't feel like they were cared for. It's interesting that people talking about Borthwick this morning are talking about the fact that he's driven, he wants to win, but he genuinely cares about you. And it's like, well, this is chalk and cheese. It's the stereotypical overreaction. We're going to go for the person who's kind and soft and also has all those other attributes. But to get back to Eddie Jones, like, at the same time, he's built this massive squad of players who have been exposed at some level to what his demands are. And by the time the World Cup rolls round, irrespective almost of the injury profile, there are going to be a lot of players who are available for England who've had some taste of international rugby. Borthwick's going to get the benefit of that. And all of a sudden, I do think that there'll be a new coach bounce, a bit of freedom from that oppression, and that actually they're going to be very, very dangerous next year in the World Cup now.
I think they will be dangerous. I think England have an incredibly good draw. And because of that, and they also have a history of playing really well in big competitions. So, and especially in World Cups. And because of that, you would expect them to have a big bounce. I'm not sure I agree with the fact that a lot of players have been exposed to international rugby, and that they'll get the benefit of that. If you're dropped in and play and then don't play again for 10 or 20 tests, that's not of a benefit. That's more destabilising almost, And I think in his rush to be successful, I think he has been a little bit loose with his selection policy, and players have been picked without maybe having played enough rugby to have been picked. And it's when that works out, it's fantastic because you look like a visionary. But look, I think there's a very emotional component to sport, and I think it is high performance, and you can't suddenly say that there is 200 players that are good enough to play for England at high performance level. I don't think that that's appropriate, actually. And yes, you can say that you can only really find that out if you test them in it. But that's where a good coach is. He makes the right call at the right time, and you have to earn the right to play. And I think that becomes part of it as well. Look, I think it's very complex. I also think there's been a really interesting shift on an entirely different sport in the last week. And I don't know whether you watched any of the cricket in Rawalpindi. But Ben Stokes is the English captain, and Brendan McCullum as the New Zealand coach has given their team a freedom to take the risk and fear losing and having no opprobrium going with it if they lost. And there's a level of swashbuckling that hasn't been seen, and Michael Atherton wrote whether this was the day that cricket changed forever, which is a really interesting thing to write in the week of a game. And you're holding that up as a mirror to say that England were a bit staid for a while in cricket, and now they're suddenly playing with a flair that has not been seen before. And I think that in some respects, there's an element of this. Is there any way of getting a bit of that freedom into the thinking of English rugby? And I think, now I don't know that Borthwick is that necessarily, but that is a proper change that's happening already. But I would still expect Borthwick to get a fairly good visionary coach to work with him. He needs somebody to challenge him as well, and to make him, he's done an incredible job with Leicester. But it's whether there will be that big, huge shift that a lot of people are looking for. And it's quite interesting. But I think for the most part, people would like, if not maybe on this side of the pond, but on the far side, they'd want England to start winning again. And having lost a lot of matches this year, the knives are out.
Suddenly the Six Nations takes on a wholly different bent. It's not just preparation for the World Cup. Borthwick needs some wins early. Warren Gatland needs to show some sign of improvement immediately in the door. Now, obviously, he knows exactly what he's walking into and seems to have negotiated some form of long-term involvement in the grassroots re-evaluation of the sport. Maybe that's just hype, and maybe he's just there for the next 10, 12, 14 months, whatever, and then he rides off again. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what the long term is. In the short term, going back to Gatland is a very interesting decision by Wales. What did you make of it?
Well, I thought it was the right decision. And again, we spoke about this last week. I thought that was the right decision for Wales and maybe for Gatland. Not everything has gone his way since he finished with Wales. They know him and he knows them. He has managed to get more out of Welsh rugby players over the last 10 or 15 years than could be thought possible with the performances that they've had in the European Cup or in the Celtic League. So I thought he was the right man to come in to do that. And I don't know that that's such a huge change. I think there's a huge comfort blanket for everybody, from the administrators down to the players, to say that, okay, we've a guy that has led and succeeded with us before, and he is the guy that they can rely on to do it again. And look, I think he'll, in a short period of time, get the players onto a mindset where there's no doubt. And that's something that he does do very well. And if that happens, I think it'll get rid of a lot of some of the sort of flakiness that's happened in Wales in the last period of time. So I think it's very tough on Pivac. I don't think he got a chance. And Shane mentioned Clive Woodward earlier on. Clive failed a lot before he won the World Cup, and sometimes it depends on whether people get an opportunity and a chance to kind of go and do things. So Pivac hasn't, and they've gone back to tried and trusted. But I also think that there is not a sense of panic necessarily, but a sense of pragmatism that's involved in the Welsh Rugby Union. The game is hemorrhaging money, and they need something to hang their hat on. Who better than the guy who was at the head of 4 Grand Slams?
Keith, Sam Warburton was making the point, I think it was in the papers yesterday, and look, hindsight's great, but he was basically saying that England maybe missed a trick by not going for Gatland themselves. Could Sweeney and co have maybe pulled the trigger a little bit earlier on Jones to get in there ahead of Wales, or is that just nonsense?
Yeah, I don't think it's nonsense, but I didn't see it happening. I thought the fit for Wales, for comfort, for pragmatism, for an acceleration to happen to the World Cup. Again, Wales are on a decent side of the draw. I would have thought that it was easier for Gatland to go in there than to have to deal with some of the criticisms he'd have had about the English players and English things over the last period of time. And, there's a far more of an uphill battle to go with England than there is with Wales. So I think it's a good fit for him in Wales. In England, I was really interested to see that it was Richard Cockerell was there as an interim, but that was the first noise that came out. And then you realise afterwards, well, actually they are going for Borthwick and they're going to try and sort that out straight away. Because I thought they were looking at something only for a short period of time, and it needs to be a longer period of time. So, no, I didn't. I just didn't see that happening. Actually, I didn't see the Gatland going to England as the option. I just thought it was a better fit with him in Wales.
Will Gatland be successful? Does he also need a very beefed up coaching ticket as well?
Well, I think he will be looking for. I think he'll be looking for an additional spark. One of the main sparks for him has been Sean Edwards, and when he was successful in most of the places that he was, Edwards was with him, or Farrell with the Lions. He's not going to have either of those, so he will need somebody else with him, I think. But Wales are kind of on their knees a bit at the moment, and look, a guy who can fight his corner and get the team on one, on a fully focused style. That's what Warren knows, so he'll do it, and I think they'll be very tricky to play against first out in the Six Nations for Ireland. No, I think Ireland's game is more mature and is able to dismantle different teams at different times, but that's reliant on us having a full squad to be able to do it. So, and as we've watched over the last period of time, when Johnny is playing and Johnny's on song, it's very hard to play against Ireland because he puts a sense of comfort on a team.
Yeah.
Without him, we're not quite the same. So, it's you can't make these calls this far out from the Six Nations.
No, fair enough. They're obviously also on the same side, same half of the draw as England. So I'm sure there was a lot of attraction from Gatland to come in and see if he can work some magic quickly. The Heineken Champions Cup comes back this weekend. Big game for Munster, big game for Leinster. There's obviously a lot of storylines from the Leinster Racing game. I do want to get your thoughts on what success looks like for Munster in the Heineken Cup. It's such a weird format to the competition now. It's not the old-fashioned, straightforward, really easy to understand format that we've had for so many years, and heaven knows why we changed it, but we are where we are. What does constitute success for Munster, given that there's been a slight uptick in performance and quality over the last 3 weeks?
Well, if I just touch on the competition first, just beforehand, I spent quite a while looking at this last night, and there isn't a huge amount of rhyme or reason to having two pools and having different kind of groups playing against each other in different ways. And I have to say, and I think it's uncomfortable for me having European competition and having matches down in South Africa in the middle of summer. I don't know whether that's to do with too many flights or, teams having to kind of pull and drag from different conditions all the time in the middle of a competition. For me, it just doesn't ring right, so I'm uncomfortable with that anyway, right? So that's the first part to it. The second part is for Munster. Munster can only look for performance. If they set everything out as being a success, as X number of wins, I don't think they're far enough in their journey. And I know people will say, God, they've been on a journey for such a long period of time. Yes, they have. And there's been ups and downs in that time. Most of the ups have been one-off victories, and the downs have been a sort of a lack of trophy. But look, I think Munster started really slowly this year, and I think they would have liked to have won a couple of matches at the start and taken some of the pressure off, and they haven't, and it's put pressure on. There has been green shoots over the last period of time, the match against South Africa, some of the URC games, some of the victories. It looks like they're trying to play a different style, and we know that takes a period of time. Okay. And so what I would be looking for is a high level of doggedness from Munster in Thomond Park, a performance to be proud of and to raise the crowd, and for the crowd to support them in kind, and see whether that gets to a victory. In times past, it has often got to a victory, and it's been good enough. I have to say, Toulouse are a fantastic side. They're a consistently fantastic side. They had their downs a few years ago, and they've come back by. Yes, they have a large salary, but they have invested a huge amount in youth.
It's
and
really
I
paying
think
off.
Munster are on that path at the present moment in time, and which is gratifying to see, actually. So, look, I'm looking for a re-engagement again in Thomond Park. I thought last year there was a sense of something fantastic in the Aviva in that game that ended in a draw, that ended in a kickoff.
Yeah.
I thought there was a re-engagement, and it fell the following week. Well, it was almost too high a step. So, look, I think you want to win your games at home, but this is an unbelievably big game for them to win.
All right, Keith, we'll leave it there. Good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers.
It's Keith Wood giving us the thoughts on the developments this week in rugby. Your views to 087 918 180. If you want to text it to us, you can WhatsApp us on that, of course, and you can also get us on youtube.com/off the ball. Now, good morning, Jess Kelly. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You come laden down with gifts. For everybody watching, this is the start of our Christmas gift guide, specifically for the gamer in your life. Our gaming preview is brought to you this morning in partnership with Virgin Media. Bring your A game with 99.9% broadband reliability. You've got a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Where do we start?
We're going to start at the affordable end of the spectrum, because people think that buying something for a gamer has to be super expensive. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about doing this, and he was saying one of the worst mistakes someone can do is buy a gaming title for a gamer in their life. Because if they're a serious gamer, they either already have it, or there's a specific reason why they don't have it.
Yeah.
So last year, one of the biggest titles that was coming out was called Cyberpunk. This has been, there was a huge lead up to it. It was the most anticipated game in such a long time. A huge amount of money and effort was pumped into it, and then when it came out, it was glitchy AF. And a lot of the gamers were so disappointed by it. All of the forums were taken over by people having a bitch and a moan, saying it was dreadful, saying it wasn't worth the hype. So I know a lot of gamers who really wanted the game but didn't want to have a bad experience with it, so have still yet to buy it. So if you're not sure what to buy for somebody, but you know the console they have, what I would recommend is getting them a streaming pass. So if you're not a gamer yourself, you may not know that there's been a huge shift in the recent years in terms of how games are sold. So before, you'd have to go to a store, get a physical copy, then you could download them. Now we have essentially the Netflix version of gaming. So Xbox has their Game Pass. The Game Pass Ultimate is a 3-month membership card. It's less than 40 quid, so it's $38.97 to be precise. You can buy it online. It's a digital download, and that will give the gamer access to hundreds of Xbox games. Not only archive titles, but also if a new title comes out, very often they're available to stream on game day. So I think it's a really good present.
I'd say there's some amount of awkward conversations at Christmas morning. Thanks a million, Mum. I have that game though.
Yeah.
Parents don't have a clue, like. But this solves all that discussion.
It gets much harder now, because you used to be able to just walk into the room and scan the games that they had, take a photograph of it, bring it to the shop and go, get me something other than this. Now, it's all online. You're like, I have to log on and check what.
It's very difficult.
This is the solution to that.
Exactly. PlayStation have a version as well, and if you don't want to spend, if you have a KK, an Office KK, and you have a limit of say 15 quid, you can also get a 1-month membership. So if there's a gamer in the office, it's a really good solution just to try and tip the cap. You get them a nice gift, and as I said, they get 100 games, so that's really good over the Christmas period.
Yeah, I know who you are. I pay attention to the fact that you're always locked in your room talking to some strangers on the internet.
yeah, exactly.
You've ignored me for the last 5 years. But I'm okay with that.
I love you still, yeah.
Just a public service announcement, right? Alexa automatically reports on all the permissions and notifications are switched on for Amazon shopping. So if you're buying a birthday present around this time for somebody, Alexa will start to pulse and go, oh, there's a little message there. Mm-hmm. And you go, what's the message? Like, oh, that thing that you just bought has now been shipped.
Does she say what it is?
I mean, your order from Amazon.
Okay.
No shame on her if she says what it is.
I mean, I thought the whole thing about Alexa was whatever you say nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most famous one. It was Jerry Adams and the IRA. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. You can answer about the stuff we just bought for someone's birthday.
But the only thing is, privacy and these devices don't go hand in hand, as I've been saying for about 75 years now. So, rookie mistake, kid.
You have to go in and switch off the shopping notifications on your Amazon Alexa app. So that otherwise, because it's automatically linked to your Amazon account, it's great if you live alone, but if you happen to have busy ears, which everybody who knows what I'm talking about knows what I'm talking about here. It's big upcoming birthdays can be spoiled.
What's the safest way to do that? To search for it's incognito browser, I guess, is the only.
Well, no, it's within the settings of the app. So when you're setting up any of these devices, so if you have a Google Home or if you have the Alexa, go into the app on the device and you can go into the settings and then tweak it. So a lot of these companies think they're being super helpful by giving you status updates the entire time. Just a quick note, if you have an iPhone, that happens as well. It doesn't broadcast it, but it does give you shipping notifications and status updates on your home screen. It'll pop up. So again, if anyone's birthday is coming up and they know how to read or recognise pictures on your home screen of your phone, just be a bit wary about that.
Yeah, so you need to find the one that says shopping and turn off everything, because there's about 6 different types of like, oh, we fulfilled the order. Congratulations, you've successfully done it. Anyway, sorry. Yes. We have Chris Doyle, our colleague, walked past and said it looks like Jess is being held hostage in a game shop.
I asked, am I in the bold corner? It feels like I'm in the bold corner with all my little toys. This is where they put me to be quiet.
So what's next?
Next up is for PC gamers. Again, it's quite difficult to know what accessories to get, but this bundle from Curry's is great. We've got the 4 different bits here. So it's the Corsair 4-in-1 gaming bundle. You get a really good gaming mouse that is really high quality. It has pretty heavy duty hardware within the mouse itself. It also has a keyboard, a specific gaming keyboard. The headset that comes with it is really good quality. So it's a stereo headset and it has the mic built in too. So if you are playing online against other people, the clarity is going to be great, but also you're getting the full impact of the sound too. And then it comes with a mouse mat. It's 120 quid. It's a really good little bundle. It's kind of 4 gifts in one for 120 quid. And again, it's really good quality. It works with both Windows and Mac OS, and it's available from Curry's.
Okay. Do you have any strong view on the quality of the gaming experience on PC versus any of the consoles?
I think it completely depends on the game. I know that, for those who kind of roll their eyes at the notion of gaming and think it's just kids and teenagers, it's not. This is a huge industry now, and there are huge tournaments where millions of dollars are up for grabs in terms of prizes, and the PC gamers are incredibly intense, and they train, and there's stamina involved, and they know when to pee, and they know when to eat, and they know what they have to eat to make sure that they have the dexterity to press the buttons and all the rest. So it's not kind of a like for like. I think you get different experiences if you're playing on the Switch versus the Xbox versus PC gaming, but I do know that if you are a PC gamer, the accessories that you use, like the gaming mouse that you use, is vital. Interesting fact for you, the most popular gaming mouse in the world was designed by an Irish company based in Bray.
All right.
There you go, little fact fan.
Random one for you. So I am intrigued by the whole Formula 1 game, the gaming chair market. Yeah. I think, were you talking before about that? Like, I was very tempted to invest in a gaming chair, not least for the Formula 1 experience, but they're also good for working from home, I think I've heard you say before. Well,
so when we all started working from home, somebody that I live with, the only person that I live with, decided to buy a gaming chair that would act...
Fair play to him.
Like, absolute idiot. It broke, basically, is the upshot.
This.
No.
Come on.
So he bought it because obviously he needed a good chair to work from home, but also he games a lot. However, although it was good and it was comfortable, after a little while, the back on it just didn't have the support, and then it kind of did that old office chair thing of creaking back after less than 12 months, which isn't ideal.
He was too busy leaning back, oh for God's sake!
Well, whether that was work or gaming, I can't confirm, but I would say if you're going to do it, I would invest. I wouldn't get the ones that are around €140. I think if you're going in, go all in and get the quality, because otherwise you'll end up buying twice.
On a cost per use basis, Shane, you can justify it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Okay, so the Corsair 4-in-1 gaming bundle is second on our list. Third on our list is the screen beside you.
Yes, this is one that I absolutely love, and I'm tempted to try and pinch it. It's the Huawei MateView SE. It's €130, which is a very good price. It's a 23.8-inch monitor from Huawei, and it's adjustable. So not only can you adjust the height, but you can also flip it. You can flip the orientation. Now, I'm not going to do it now in case it breaks. But depending on what game you're playing, or indeed if you're working from home and you want to have multiple monitors set up, you can flip it so that it goes from landscape to portrait, and it gives you that bit more immersive experience depending on the game that you're playing. Again, the quality is great. The colours are like, everything sort of pops from this screen. There's multiple controls. You can add different ports. There's a two HDMI ports on the back, and then just a neat little port for the cables to go in. So I really like this, and you can see it's not taking up a huge amount of desk space as well, because the stand is so narrow. So for 130 quid, I think this one is great.
Easier on the eyes too, Jess?
Yeah, 100%. Like, some of the screens are too glossy. There's a slightly matte finish off this that just makes it a bit easier on the eye. But I think, again, it's a good... Using a traditional PC monitor for gaming doesn't offer the best experience, I would argue. The screen quality of this is class, so I really, really like it. And again, 130 quid.
Is there an alternative to just buy another TV? Is that...
Yeah.
I often wonder why you would get the specific of the monitor when a TV has the same functionality, or is there something specific about this that actually would stand out from, say, a TV?
So it depends on your gaming setup. So if you're a PC gamer, for example, you probably have a dedicated space, and you may have, certain space requirements or limitations in that field.
The stand was the first thing actually that maybe it's probably better than TV.
Yeah, I think it's a bit neater, and it also means then that you're not sort of overwhelming any one room. So if you are somebody who likes to game in the living room, for example, it's not cool, again, saying this to no one in particular, to dominate the entire TV with just a solo gaming experience. Maybe have a little monitor in the side of a room. It could be a nice alternative for everyone involved.
That's why you're stealing it.
Exactly. It's a gift for me and for them. So I think it depends. The one thing that I've learned over the years is that, so I'm a casual gamer. I like dipping in and out. There are people who are so serious and specific about their setup when it comes to their gaming. So I know that a lot of people will have a preference in terms of their setup. They don't want it too clogged. They don't want just one big monitor. They might want 2 or 3 individual screens that they can hook up together so that you can have live chat in one area and then you can have your main game in another area. So it just comes down to personal preference.
Okay, so the bits that you do actually game on, you're a Switch fan?
I love the Nintendo Switch. This is my most prized possession, out of everything. I take it everywhere with me, and I know I sound like a child, but I love it. So this is the Nintendo Switch Lite. It's €239. This is a little sister of the Switch family. So there's the standard Switch that came out a few years ago. Then there's the Switch Lite. And more recently, there was the OLED, which is the biggest one. So it has the biggest screen, the Joy-Cons, so the bits that have the controllers on the side come off. You can connect it to the TV, as is the case with the basic Switch, but not with the Switch Lite. So this is just a purely handheld console, kind of like one of the old school Game Boys. And it has a slightly smaller screen. Battery life on it is great. And the reason I love this is because of the games that are sort of within the Nintendo ecosystem, if you want. So all of the Mario games. I'm obsessed with Animal Crossing, which I know will lose me a lot of cool points if I had any at all.
Is Animal Crossing basically you get an animal across the road and there's traffic?
No, it's more pathetic than that. There's less jeopardy than there is in that scenario. You basically are a little kind of avatar thing, and you have to look after an island, and you have to clean up leaves, and you have to organise things, and you have to make sure everyone's doing what they're meant to do. It's kind of like what I do in real life.
I was going to say, Marie Kondo, eat your heart out.
It's like Sims on an island, basically.
It kind of,
except we're tidying up.
Yeah, we're tidying up and we're following the rules because that's what we do. And I absolutely love it. If you have someone in your life who used to be a gamer and wants to go back to some of those old school Mario Kart games, the Switch Lite is a great way to go because firstly, it's more widely available than some of the other consoles. It's more affordable, and also it's small and compact. So again, you're not dominating the entire house with it. It's also great for younger gamers. So we had a question into the Pat Kenny show yesterday, as is 7 too young to get my kid an Xbox? And I said probably yeah, just in terms of what's involved with it, but also the games. When it comes to the Switch Lite, you can get more educational games. You can get very basic games. And it's something that everybody in the house can kind of enjoy. So I'm a huge fan of the Switch Lite.
Do you know when you mentioned the Game Boy there, just got a wave of nostalgia?
Yeah.
But the way everyone's going for the retro jerseys and the retro clothes and everything at the minute, is there a push for retro games and gaming consoles
100%.
as well, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. A few years ago actually, we had with Kenny in the studio, we had one of those, a retro version of the original PlayStation, basically, that had some of those really, really retro.
Hunt, I think, was the...
Yeah, was that the one? And it was just great fun. They're very, very affordable. I know 3.ie has a retro arcade Pac-Man machine that you can get for 60 quid. So stuff like that are definitely coming back. But you can also, with things like the Xbox Game Pass that I mentioned earlier on, and with the PlayStation version, you can also get access to a lot of those old games that you would have played back in the day, and you can now play it on the newer consoles. The one thing to note is that the majority of the games haven't been upgraded in terms of the quality, so you're still kind of getting that grainy, old school feel to the game, but you're just now playing it on a newer console.
Would have been Tetris back in your day, Ger, wouldn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the original Atari.
Oof, Jesus.
Do you know what that is?
It's the Japanese game.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Gotta keep it general. Very general.
Jess, you're coming back. There's more of this?
Yeah, we will have more gifts pretty much every Wednesday for the next few weeks. So if you have anything in particular you're looking for or whatever, get in touch and we will dig it out for you.
And the best place to get in touch is Instagram?
Instagram at Jess Kelly NT.
All right, good stuff. More from Jess, as we said, next week. That is it for now. Our gaming preview is brought to you this morning in partnership with Virgin Media. Bring your A game with 99.9% broadband reliability. Right, the Leopardstown Christmas Festival takes place from December 26th to the 29th. A great day out for sports fans, socialites and thrill seekers alike. Every day this week, we have 2 hospitality passes for the Leopardstown Pavilion to give away. You'll get a reserved table, lunch, chat and tips from top tipsters and much more besides. To enter, simply comment with a crying laughing emoji on our main Twitter page @OffTheBall and you're automatically in the hat. And remember to ensure that your DMs are open. That's how we contact you. The Leopardstown Christmas Festival, December 26th to 29th. Tickets from €35 available at leopardstown.com. Right, a couple of quick live comments for you. Has anybody got the correct answers for the 2002 penalty misses?
There's a couple of correct answers in, wasn't there, Colin, I think?
Am I giving it away now? John Duggan is with us. John, good morning to you.
Ger Shane, how we doing?
Do you know who missed the penalties for Spain in 2002?
I knew the Ireland, I didn't know the Spanish ones.
Okay, well...
Who's the Ireland ones, John? Go on.
David Connolly, Kevin Kilban, Matt Holland.
Well done.
100% correct, yeah.
Yeah.
We're ruining the crappy quiz round to make it at home shouting at the radio. Stop it!
Yeah.
It was Juan Fran and Valeron.
Oof.
Both of them playing for Valencia at that stage.
Both good hipster.
No, sorry, Deportivo La Coruña. CBL secretary says, we, the Cork Business League, have many clubs who remind us all of the intercontinental style of South American football. We love you, Colin Buig. Inspector Corp says, Colin, are you posing for your burner account again?
I enjoyed Barney's comment in here. He goes, what was a better World Cup in the young lad Shane's lifetime, if not this one? He wasn't around for very many. He's getting cocky now. By the way, shave the fluff off your face. That last comment was unnecessary. Barney, ironically, his name is Barney because he's a dinosaur. He doesn't realise that beards are the in thing. Now, maybe this is fluff on my face, but per Barney. Apologies, Barney. He also says the reason Ronaldo didn't start last night is the young lad Shane gets that in again, and Ger have smeared his name day after day in public. Shane even took his jersey out of his pile of United jerseys that his mother folds. So there you go. So partly it's our fault that Ronaldo didn't start last night, Ger. The young lad Shane. He's saying that as if it's an insult. I'm delighted I'm young.
You gifted the Manchester United jersey to a charity shop, I hear.
Of course, yeah, exactly. And my mother doesn't fold my clothes. I'm well capable of doing that the odd time myself.
Not folding them yourself.
We've no games for the next 2 days, so I'm going to have to start doing laundry and folding clothes.
Yeah. John, how are you getting on?
Good lads yourselves. You can throw in the World Cup trivia at me, by the way. That's one of my things.
Oh,
I mean that sounds like a clarion call to our YouTube users in particular to get the comments in. And to see if we can stump JD.
Yeah, you can have a go.
We should have some kind of prize for stump JD.
Yes.
And whoever manages to get a question that stumps you wins the prize.
Yes.
It could be...
I don't have any bobbleheads yet, but...
It could be one of the books from The Office. Something as simple as that.
Signed by me.
That we don't really have to work too hard to sort out.
Yes.
Where do you want to start, John?
Well, yesterday, and just... it was interesting that Gonzalo Ramos scored a hat-trick against Ireland at the UEFA Under-19 semi-finals back in 2019. I don't know if you mentioned that already on the show. But he'd only played 33 minutes for Portugal, and he only made his debut within the last month. He has scored 9 goals for Benfica in 11 games. But it was the right decision for Fernando Santos. He was brave, and he dropped Ronaldo, and it paid off. A 6-1 win. I felt Portugal looked liberated. They were fabulous. Even Leao, as... we mentioned in the last few days, came off the bench and scored a really good goal. And you'd have to think out of the 8 teams, guys, maybe 5 are realistic contenders, possibly 6 of winning this thing.
Yeah, of winning it, right? Because you don't think Morocco are going to win it.
Or Croatia.
But at the same time, they could also have one of those sticky games where they knock out one of the favourites.
Yes, in the next round.
You know, that could easily happen.
The good news for Brazil and Argentina and Holland is that, not trying to be disrespectful to Croatia, but that England, France, Portugal, only one can get into the final, and all of them would be well deserving of a place almost in the final at the moment, the way they've been playing.
Yeah, England, France I'm finding increasingly harder to call as it gets closer.
Mbappe didn't train yesterday, has an ankle complaint, but they're expecting him to be fit. I read the back of, I think it was the UK Times or one of the papers, no, the Guardian. England have been preparing for 2 years to play France in terms of tactics and formations, and I'm sure they're penalty takers and everything. It was really Italian 90 vibe I felt about Morocco yesterday. it was very kind of similar. A defensive team that doesn't concede many goals, has a 0-0 draw, goes to 120 minutes, and then wins and reaches the last eight for the first time in their history. I thought it was an amazing romantic tale.
Good to see an African team. Interestingly, John, who was the first African team to compete at the World Cup? But first to compete at the World Cup finals.
Oh, was it Tunisia in 1978?
I think we've got him.
Stumped already. This bit's gone.
It was actually earlier than you expect. Egypt lost to Hungary 4-2 in their only match of the 1934 finals.
There you go. So
yeah, you got to do the pre-war stuff.
Stumped has already collapsed.
That's a tough one, though.
It only took about 2 minutes for it to be.
You were right though with Cameroon. Cameroon the first in the quarters. Yeah,
to go down in flames.
Yeah.
That Ireland under-19 team, by the way, that was beaten. I'm just looking through the names.
Joe Hodge was in it.
Joe Hodge, Andrew Omobamidele came off the bench. After 81 minutes, it was too late for that. Festi Abaselli played as well. Tyreek Wright played, and so there's a few others really in that side who have yet to reach the same heights as our boy Ramos.
Yes. So Spain, to me, they looked like they were shrinking. Those players going up to take those penalties.
Yeah.
The body language was really bad. They're just kids, really, aren't they? Spain.
Carlos Soler looked like he'd just been told his pet had died. He looked terrified walking up. I was like, literally, if a man could crawl inside himself, he would have. He looked absolutely not the man you want stepping up to take a penalty in the World Cup. But body language is key. You could tell he was going to miss.
I was doing a lot of stats after COVID around the Premier League, and when the fans came back, and home advantage became a thing again, as it should, as it was always the case in football, and you really felt it was a home game for Morocco. You wonder the influence of that on the Spanish. I think that does matter. So yeah, they're the main things. Like it's.
I thought Busquets looked really nervous.
Yeah,
taking a penalty, and you're like, "Come on, you've done everything."
But he also looked the least nervous of the three, I thought, and yet he still looked nervous.
It was a terrible penalty.
Yeah, it was brutal.
1,019 passes. That's like literally getting in your car and driving around the roundabout all day.
Is that no cutting edge on Spain's behalf, or is that just Morocco's defensive solidity?
Spain did exactly the same thing 4 years ago.
Yeah,
they've gone off the cliff in terms of this possession football without a cutting edge now, and a lack of leadership in their team. Exactly the same thing happened to Russia.
Yeah,
they're passing around, going around the roundabout all day forever without the incision. And it's amazing though. It's funny how the narratives can change after a 7-0 win over Costa Rica. You think, well, Spain are going to be deep into the tournament, and now they're gone home with the Swiss.
And with the shave, Sarabia shaving the post at the end as well, you're thinking this is the moment. Yeah. And then when you see him walking up as the first man to take, you're thinking, no, like that chance is still in his head.
Not many players are really hitting penalties. There's a lot of placement. There's not much blasting. There's not much.
It's pathetic to watch. Just take the penalty, run up and kick the penalty into the corner hard.
You tell him, Hannon.
Well, I mean, players are just trying to come up with all these novel, strange ways of hitting penalties now because they think goalkeepers have evolved into robots. But
the Neymar one was good. It was good. I don't know even how to describe what Neymar did the other night.
Well,
actually try that in the final, in the penalty shootout in the final.
I mean, Zidane did it to the chip, didn't he? Off the crossbar.
Yeah, it was like the absolute perfect Panenka.
Yeah.
Sorry, just some news coming through from a reporter called Georgina Robertson, who writes about sport for the Sydney Morning Herald and Rugby Heaven, and she is saying that she is hearing that Leinster Rugby are courting Scott Robertson for the post Stuart Lancaster era.
Right,
that's a big move.
I mean, this is too nice. We can't have nice things in this world. We shouldn't even. It would be too hopeful. Imagine that.
Oh, huge if true.
Woo! That's like legit. This is one of the few times. I mean, that's supposed to be ironic. This is like legitimately huge if true.
Yeah.
Breakdancing at the Viva.
But you can't do this because if it doesn't happen, like literally everything after that is a little bit of a letdown. You could have Jesus himself coaching the team, and you'd be like, yeah, but you're not Scott Robertson, Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, you've made the water and wine and the people walking and stuff, and you've healed the lame, but you're not Scott Robertson, buddy.
Jeez, well, the Leinster cheese and wine, they'll have to bring in the New Zealand wine.
It's good stuff
for the Leinster fans.
Always been a fan of the old Marlborough.
Bring Rog into Munster and have
Marlborough Red is surprisingly nice.
Well, there you go. Bring Roger to Munster and have Scott Robertson and.
I've never had New
Rog.
Zealand wine.
Have you not?
No.
Oh, you should try it.
I don't really know much about wine. I only drink Rioja.
It's a big opportunity for you to get into it.
It is a big opportunity. Yeah. You know, if I'm
try the Priorat.
Christmas,
Try
John,
the Beale.
Christmas.
Christmas, yeah.
Right, JD. Anything else?
Not really. Steve Borthwick's going to get that job to replace Eddie Jones. Apart from that, it's all about the World Cup. The first day in 17, we will have a rest day today.
Jesus.
It's been a long time coming.
It has been.
A lot of relationships are going to get rekindled.
Yeah, you should see my stat stock. It's burning. It's it needs a day off.
Right, JD, good stuff. Tune into the lunchtime wrap today, bringing you all the latest sports news. It's with thanks to Deliveroo. Check out the app for some great matchday meal deals across the World Cup. Deliveroo, food, we get it. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you across the day. Sonia Sullivan on OTB Gold at 1 o'clock. Koi Gig is there from 3 o'clock. Our retro panel is Gambling and Addiction at 4. OTB Gold is Manu Petit from 6. You can follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB podcast network for all the best in the latest sports content. After the short break, we're going to be joined in studio by Brian Gartland, the legendary dog star that recently hung up his boots. In the ad break, you're going to hear a clip from the latest episode of Koi Gig, where Kathleen McNamee, Karen Duggan and Emma Byrne are discussing how Manchester United are title contenders this season, where they currently sit in second in the WSL. The Koi Gig pod on OTB Sports is in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We're back after these.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the Ball Daily.
A home for your favourite podcasts from Off the Ball. The performance rankings, You Had to Be There, the crappy quiz, and a slight tangent.
And the next time he opens his mouth, I'm the first one on saying, "Lads, Keane said this."
Subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed right now.
I don't even know if a different attitude is the right way to approach it, but a change in the sense that they know they have the actual resources there to get these sort of results and to obviously do what they did against teams like Arsenal.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? It's the Arsenal game. I think that's going to be a real turning point for them. We spoke about them going into that game at the Emirates about not beating the three top sides, City, Chelsea, Arsenal. And that was the thing, wasn't it? Because they've been in the season. This is their 4th year in the WSL, and they've came 4th every single time. And they just can't seem to get into that Champions League spot. This is the year they're going to do it. They have to do it.
Next week's game, really, isn't it? The United City game. Like that's
it. And, you know, going into that game, they look extremely good. They've got a really good squad. They've players that are really not happy because they're sitting on the bench, which I think is a great sign, by the way. And it's what you said, like going into the game with all these different goal scorers, everybody's on form. The two midfielders who I would have said were their weakest unit, as in Katie Zellum and Hayley Ladd, actually are performing brilliantly. Just marshalling that midfield in there. And they don't need to push forward. I know Katie Zellum scored, but they don't need to push forward. They can allow all the players around them, like Galton and Nikita Paris, to push on. I thought Nikita was a bit quiet, actually. I was expecting a little bit more from her, but she does have Lucia Garcia sitting on the bench, and that's what he has. He can change it around. He can put at least 2 players on that are not going to be a weakness, putting the subs on. So they're looking really good. They're definitely challenging for the Champions League, and I think they'll challenge for the title itself.
Are you a sports fanatic who loves to travel? Then sportspass.ie is for you. Log on for the chance to win the trip of a lifetime in 2023 to a top global sporting event. 8 winners get to choose from 12 incredible prizes, including trips to the Women's World Cup in Australia, the Super Bowl, the Masters and WrestleMania. All prizes include return flights, accommodation and tickets for 2 people from anywhere in the world. That's sportspass.ie. You win, you choose.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's nearly 9 o'clock. You're listening to OTB AM if you're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube, where you should hit the subscribe button. We're here every morning between 7:30 and 10 o'clock, and I'm delighted to say Brian Gartland is with us, former footballer Brian Gartland. How's that resting with you?
Yeah, first time I've heard that, so it sounds... I'm not dealing with it too well, so
no.
I don't know. It didn't sound too great, but yeah, listen, it is what it is, and it's a chapter, a great chapter of my life. I suppose most of my life so far. That's passed by, and it's a transition. Looking forward to the future and seeing what it brings, but obviously going to miss it terribly.
You must, obviously everybody knows at some point you're going to have to stop playing. Were you one of those people who were like, oh, that's definitely going to happen, I'm making plans for that, I'm making peace with it, I'm going to live every moment? Or are you like, no, I'm not going to think about that until the day before it happens?
Yeah, I have a few things going on outside football, so everyone was sort of presumptuous, and I sort of that convinced myself as well that that's going to be grand. You know, you've got other interests, it's going to distract you, but I don't think it comes down to that. I think when it comes down to it, I thought it was Peter Pan. You know what I mean? I always said play forever, durability for years until I was 34, never had a bad injury, and so I was like, right, 37, 38, if I can stay at the top till that. Now I know people say that, you know, players don't and no one does.
They do more now than they used to, though.
They do now, but in the League of Ireland it's a different story. You're not earning a fortune, you
can't rest all day.
You can't have someone mind the kids and do all the work for you, and you know, you have to have other things, other stresses come into your life, and life changes and that sort of thing, so you're not sheltered from everything else like you would be at, say, I'm looking at Pepe and Thiago Silva, and
they have chefs,
they've got everything, you know. So that was the aim. Now I fell a little bit short of it, so kept going as long as I could, just because I love the game, just wanted to play, and it's that I suppose the last while, and I knew it's been coming, and I was watching the World Cup, and like the emotions in the World Cup, I think it exemplifies it more than any other football tournament, Premier League and like that. I think the World Cup just brings out every emotion in it, and I'm looking at that, like even the intensity of the tackles and the games, like from other international games, and that from the very first group game, and I'm looking at that and going, oh my God,
gonna miss that.
Yeah, how am I gonna replace this?
It's funny, the guy texted you, I messaged you during the week and I was like, congratulations, and then you were like, I don't know if it's congratulations or commiserations. Like, how do you, which should it be? Like, are you happy or sad?
Listen, I'm reflecting back on the career, and you know, I'm delighted with it, and couldn't have dreamed for some of the experiences I had. And it's, I suppose, the old saying, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. It couldn't be any truer. And you just got to say, it is what it is, and you get on with it. But yeah, it was, I posted up the retirement. I specifically did it when I was on my own, because I'd had a few tears earlier on the day, and then I was sitting on the train down to here. I actually ended up in the pub around the corner, and on my own posted it up, and it took me half an hour. I had it all prepared, whatever. It took me half an hour to press the button. Jeez. So that was just sort of, and it's not dramatised, and it's just, football just means that much to me, and you're closing the door on it, and like I said, all those experiences and all those feelings, and all those people as well, you know, in the dressing rooms. I've been lucky, I've been in some fantastic ones. The one at Monaghan was brilliant and great crack, you know, a real introduction to it. And then Dundalk over the years, I've shared the dressing room with special players and people. Like we talk about all the players that have such talent, but they're brilliant lads, like, you know, and great respect for each other, which you don't always get in dressing rooms.
It's funny how you mentioned Monaghan first. You won 5 league titles, and obviously the medals mean a lot, because that's kind of why everybody gets drawn into it in the first place. But the bit that seems to live with players who play for so long at the level you played at is actually, and it's always a cliche, it's like it is the crack, and it is the people along the way. Everybody always says it, and so it is cliche, but it's obviously really fundamentally true that, like, the thing that keeps you going is the relationships and wanting to help other people and wanting to be part of a team, and that's the bit that you can't easily replace.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you feel part of something, you belong to something. People rely on you, you're relying on other people the whole time, and like you said, just the interaction, just you're all working towards something, but at the same time the crack, like a footballer's sort of banter, I suppose is the word that's always used, is it's just you don't get it outside. I don't get it outside the same, and just there's always something. There's that many different characters. If you've always 20 lads in one dressing room, you're going to have that many different characters. And like I said, Monaghan was brilliant for it. It was my first sort of introduction of that, and a manager that made me feel really appreciated there. And then
who was that?
Mick Cook,
right?
Great man, and there's just so much time from. And I was a young lad,
Where did he get you from?
From Shelbourne.
Right.
So, and Shelbourne had been tough because they'd lost everyone. They'd gone through the worries, you know, after the, I suppose, money problems and that. And we were a young team, so there's a lot of pressure on us in a big club. And it was a nice learning curve, but it was, you know, it was tough, but it was a learning curve. And then Nick then took me to Monaghan, and first experience like that. And every year, I was there 3 years, but we built something. Like from Monaghan, we're bottom half of the first division.
Yeah. And
each year we built something, and then we just got pipped by Derry City team that had trouble or whatever, but they had a Premier Division team playing in the first division, and we just got pipped there on the end of the season to the league title. But each year something had built, and when you're working towards something like that and you can see the progression, you feel part of it, like you said.
And when you were leaving Shells to go to Monaghan, was there part of you that was like, this might not happen for me? Like, did you doubt at any stage that you were going to continue to make it?
Yeah, and I'd had a flip, like in the space of 18 months. I've been in Bray's, I was probably about 18, training with Bray's first team, and they were mid-table in the Premier. The league here was flying, there was plenty of money in the country, and Bray's ambition was to get into the European spaces, and I had ambition. I was chatting with Shane before. I was like, right, I want to get into the first team, get into the Irish under-21s, get a move away, all that, and then change of managers and an unfortunate turn of events. I ended up suspended for a few months, and I just wasn't going to get a look in there, so I went to Shells, and again got experience of playing. Mightn't have been the best season, but it stood to me, and then I went down to the bottom and had to work the whole way up.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking, like, I was just looking at your book is sitting behind you in the studio, like, I'm just thinking it must be nice to have gone through that and put these stories down on paper, so now you can kind of, now that you've retired, look back and you have them all documented. It's not like you're going to forget anything, you know, you have it written there.
I had said, especially at Dundalk, we were winning trophy after trophy, and Stephen always had this thing about being relentless, and that's what we were then. You know, he'd instilled this in us, and each time we won, and listen, we had great celebrations. We'd enjoy it, and you gotta celebrate moments like that. But it'd be the next one. Oh, that's done. It's in the back there. It's the next one. It's the next one. It's the next one. I always said, when I retire, I'll enjoy it and look back and be proud. But the book allowed me to do that before I retired, and that was because of COVID and the lockdowns and football stopped. So and it allowed me to, I suppose I learned a lot. You know, I going into all these occasions, all these situations, and reflecting on them and thinking, whatever opinion I had at the time, I could have actually had a different opinion now when I look back and see it from, say, someone else's point of view, say Stephen's point of view, if I had an altercation with him and that, and it's like, right, maybe he was right. But I was a younger lad, it might have been 5, 6, 7 years ago, just going, I couldn't be wrong, it was his fault, in my head.
Yeah, well, not to labour the point, but to go down to Monaghan is obviously, it's risky in a way, right? Because it could be the end.
There's not much further you can
There's no guarantee you're going to get
into amateur football after it,
Yeah, there's no guarantee you're going to recover, but you do recover and end up having like a really great, by any standard, League of Ireland career. So in retrospect, it's a great experience to go through. I'm thinking of all this and your love of football. Like, it strikes me that coaching or management is something that would be natural, but you do have extracurricular interests, like a business that's going on at the moment. They're not always, you can't do these things, or it's difficult to juggle all those.
Yeah, it is, and I'm kind of at a point where I don't need to decide straight away. I might dip my toe in something, but not fall in, or it's a big commitment going into coaching and management,
and it's a really hard life.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the industry just isn't here in this country.
Yeah,
there's only a few jobs that are well paid. You then go back into the same thing of, I have a young family now, and when I met my wife, her brother played inter-county football, so she understood the commitment and all that, and the sacrifices. So that was grand. Before that was just me. I only had to worry about, I'm making that decision, it's me that deals with sacrifice. Then you have kids that come along. I mean, you can't have a weekend away from January to November.
Yeah.
And then you can't have a holiday, or you get 5 days off in June, and then mightn't suit with her work to take holidays then. Different stuff like that, or the kids' school and different things. There's a massive, massive sacrifice that comes from not myself then, from everyone in the background.
Yeah.
And it gets to a stage then, I suppose, with the injuries now and if I go again, I'm going to miss pre-season because I have to have a small little operation. So you're playing catch up again, and I'm putting through. I wouldn't be the best at home sometimes when things are going that way. So you're putting everyone through stuff that at home, and they're sacrificing. And is it going to be worth it? Are we going to get the reward out of it, sort of thing? So there's a lot of variables then that come into it.
So would you do a coaching role somewhere to dip your teeth in that way, where you don't have all the responsibility of the Brian Gartlands who are coming to the end of their career, and you have to manage that relationship with them, and you're desperately hoping they come back for another season, and they're or the 19-year-old kid who wants to go off and play in England and is really only kind of phoning it in a little bit but needs someone to wake him up, whereas you could just come, do the coaching session, go home and go, I did a great job today.
I'd be interested in. I'm open to anything really. Right. Like I said, I'm just assessing different options. I have a few different options in terms of that regard, and I again have outside interests, but I'll always want to stay involved with football. And the outside interests, I'm hoping do well that allow me to stay involved in football and have the life I want, because like I said, the industry isn't here with massive money in football, and there's only so many jobs, sort of thing. So if my outside interests go well, then it allows me to give back on the other side, because I talked about it. I'm just finishing my UEFA B course there, and talked about it at the end, and I said I feel there's a debt to repay, because I spent all those years as a kid playing, all the volunteers, all the people giving up their time. Who
did you play with when you were coming through?
Gatland United being my local team,
right?
And then I jumped ship to Leicester Celtic just up the road, and then
controversial.
No, that wasn't a controversial one. The next one was because Gatland had sort of disbanded, the ages changed, or they dropped down league, so I had to stay in the Premier. And Leicester, we had to come second, I think, in semi-final of the All Ireland. So it was good team and going places, and I jumped ship down to Verona over Blanchardstown, which for a lad that lives over in Dublin 16, and the M50 has been done, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours to train, and I'm back after school. But it was a coach that was there, and I talked about him in the book there, Alan McGovern. He was with the FEI and I think the Ireland 14s at the time, and he took over Verona, and he had coached me at Gatland because he was brother-in-law of the manager,
right?
And I'd say like everything I learned in my childhood in terms of football came from him, in terms of just reading the game, tactical, defending, things like that. He was just a marvellous coach. So that's why that was the sort of controversial one when I jumped ship over there.
What role did Stephen Kenny play in your career and development?
Massive. Listen, it speaks for itself that I didn't win anything until I was 27. I went to Dundalk when I was 26. Like I said, I went down to the bottom and then just sort of scourged my way around. Kept working. I trained full time myself the whole time, and at home I'd be getting mid-20s. I'd be getting a little thing going, right, when are you going to get a proper job now, or how are you going to get a mortgage? And the brother then, he's a few years older, would be asking my mother the same questions, and there'd be a little bit of pressure coming that way. And but everything I did sort of was always to allow me to give everything to football. And then just when I was about to sign for Dundalk, that's when I had the decision to make. I wanted to come back. I was up north and I wanted to come back down, and I've been training with Shells, waiting for them to offer me a contract. They didn't. Mick Cook was going to Drogheda, but it's mid-season, so they've nothing to play with. And again, the money was very little in the league then, 10 years ago. And out of the blue, Stephen rang me, and my world just turned upside down. And I didn't really want to go because I didn't want to travel, but I couldn't turn down the opportunity that there was just this chance of a medal. They were going all right in the league. They were up in the top 3 or 4. And when I was thinking, right, it's time to put everything else first, I just said, sure, I'll give it that's where the book came from, one last shot. I'll give it one last shot, and I signed for the rest of the season for 3 or 4 months. And sliding doors moment.
What was it about him that allowed you to reach your potential?
Just gives you belief. Just belief. Like, his enthusiasm for the game, like, and his love of the game. Like, we'd be doing shooting drills or finishing drills, and after, like, if something came off, that we'd sort of worked on, and then it would seamlessly comes off, like, he'd be off celebrating as well. Like, he's brilliant, but the energy is infectious, and then on the other side of it, he's so demanding. you don't want to get on the wrong side of him. You didn't want to get on the wrong side of him.
You said there if there was an altercation if we'd had, what? Give us some examples.
No, not an altercation.
Well, I know what you mean, like a disagreement.
You're going to have disagreements, and like you say, well, you should have done this. You'd be saying, well, no, I did this, and you'll have different things. And
does he listen to you?
As you got older, you might have had a little bit more bravery to say something. When you're younger, and at a lot of the time, you just have to say,
fair enough,
my fault, fair enough for things. But now and then, you're going to give your opinion back, and then you might the next time because you realise you're better off not. But that's how the relationship develops over the years as well. Like so many seasons with him, and he just, like I said, he just brought the best out, and everyone gave everyone belief to play a way that I suppose no one thought we could, or especially with the players. We didn't have tried and tested proven players in the league. We didn't have loads of league winners and people that have, I suppose, a history of quality behind them. And
so what do you think when you see the criticism of him now as the Ireland manager from certain quarters?
It's football. It's football in the modern world. Like, you guys will know it better than anyone. We take away the football, first of all. No matter what you do, there's going to be a certain quartet that's going to have that opposite opinion, right? Because sometimes football doesn't come into it. And that's, from my point of view, that's how I see it, because begrudgingly they won't want to say anything good when we do have a good game, and then when we do have a poor game, it's all in. There'll always be something. I think the World Cup's the perfect example of it. Like, you've no right to win stuff, but you have to build something. Like, look at all the top teams. When I suppose you look at all the teams that have caused upsets in the last couple of weeks, and they've been building something for the last while, and it's just about structure. It's about belief and getting something there and bringing players through with that sort of way of playing and belief.
I think the point you make as well about there not being a massive industry here where there's only 3 or 4 jobs, like, that's the crux of the whole problem, is that we used to rely on England
to develop everyone.
Yeah. Like coaches, managers, specifically players, and that's gone now. And what do we have in its place? Well, like, everybody goes, 15 years of underinvestment, but it's actually 100 years of underinvestment in the league. Basically, since Match of the Day started on the BBC, the League of Ireland has not been successful. Like, there's a kind of clear correlation, cause and effect. Everybody started watching TV in England.
When Sky came in as well, Sky paid for floodlights to move to Friday night to get them out of the way, for the Premier League.
Yeah,
that's the old story, I suppose, back in the 90s. And, so that was even after Match of the Day. There's another sort of thing pushing you out of the way. And if you look at old attendances for the league back in the 70s, 80s, it was through the roof for 60s, 70s, 80s, because people didn't have access to football every single minute of the day.
And it does feel, like in the last couple of years, like there's a move from within the league to fix this themselves, as opposed to waiting for the IRFU or the FAI or the government, Freudian slip, to come in and help things. And it feels a little bit like we're getting there, but the pace is so slow.
It is, but like you say, that it's clubs that are making moves themselves. I think the FAI are trying. They've obviously a lot to fix in their house. From, we all know the history there, so they're trying and they're making moves forward. I wouldn't be privy to everything that's happening and going on in behind, so I'd like to be optimistic and think that they're doing their best, but what I'd love to see them is lobbying the government more and more and more, because like you say, like, it's such a big game, is that you need the support. You need the support that the other big games get in the same way, but at the same time, football has to help itself, and it has to have a good image. It has to do its own work, and the clubs, I think, are doing that. And I think if they continue to do that, the support will have to come, because the communities around the clubs are growing bigger and bigger. Bows are doing a great job. It's very tough for the Dublin clubs because of the communities. If you're in a Dundalk, a Sligo, those type of things, you're a one club town. It can be, you're the club.
Yeah.
But in the Dublin clubs, it can be quite hard.
Well, they live right beside each other. Bows and Shells live right beside each other, and their hinterland is exactly the same, and so they are competing.
And then you've got the multicultural communities in there, sort of thing. So it's not a sense of belong. This is my team. This is my area. I grew up with, as it would be to Dundalk and stuff like that. So you have different, I suppose, things like that. So that's why I think Bows are doing a brilliant job in terms of that, in terms of commercial and marketing and that side. They get a bit of stick for it, but that's what's
when
increasing their
right.
revenues, and their budget's bigger and bigger every year.
When you talk about the one last shot, like, you probably never could have imagined that the European adventures you'd have with Dundalk, whatever, like playing at the Emirates, for example, or taking on top quality teams in Europe. That must have been something special.
Yeah, it was incredible. When you think back at it, and you think like Zenit, and they've been in the Champions League year after year, and you're playing over there in that stadium, and the lights were something like Friday night lights. Everyone just remembers them, the old-fashioned ones, and it's an old stadium. They got a new one the next year for the World Cup, and then arriving into the Emirates, and you're pulling up on the bus, and their cars are all parked right at the door. And there's about 6 G-Wagons with it, some of them with diamonds all around them, and everything, and you're just looking, it's a different world. Like, Fitzel went for 30 million just after we played him, and Javi Garcia was in midfield, and Juliano was then playing in the 10 for Brazil, Zuba up front, and then Kirchhoff, the record scorer or cap holder, I think it was, our scorer for Russia as well up front. Like, and it's just littered when you look through. Crescito off Italy, and we played Tel Aviv, and we beat them at home. And that was an incredible feeling. I'm playing against Benayoun comes on, like, and I've been a Liverpool fan, my whole life. So growing up, he would have been playing, Champions League games, and Benayoun was actually excellent for them, even though he was probably good age at the time. But just unreal memories that I couldn't have envisaged in the League of Ireland. Like, obviously the goal was always to go to England. It's always to go to the Premier League and the top.
It strikes me though, you must be fairly mentally resilient, because like you have that ACL injury in early 2021, and for a lot of people at that age that would have been it. But I mean, you come back, and even last month you played against Derry up there, and you're one of the best players on the pitch. Like, that probably led to some doubt in your head as to whether this was the time or not the time.
Yeah, I had a decent game there, the last game of the season, and everyone's saying, "Oh well, you can't retire now." You cruised, it was grand, but it's a different story having to do it day in, day out. And then that's the last game of the season. I hadn't played many games in the season. I think I played 5 or 6 because of injury. So there was a little bit of doubt, but then I knew I'd injured the knee. I'd done something in September, aggravated that knee, that it's the ACL, and I knew I had to scan it, but I decided I was just going to treat the symptoms, and we'll scan it at the end of the season, because if I scanned it then and it was something that they say, listen, you can't play with, then I won't even get back on the pitch. So we were worried it was the ACL, but it turns out it's meniscus injury, so I have to get that's the small op I have to get done. So but listen, like I said, it's easy to rock out once every now and then and do it, but to do it regularly is a different story, and it's hard on the body, like the intensity of the game. And we were in there the last week of the season, and there was 2 16-year-olds, because it was the midterm. Owen Kenny, actually Stephen's son, and Sen and another lad were in, and I was marking Owen, I think, in one of the games, and he's big, broad lad, athletic, and I just thought to myself, he's 16 or 20 years older than this lad. He was 6 when I met him first. Like, I met him when he was 6, and I just thought maybe this is a sign as well, But great memories, great times, and sometimes you just have to admit to yourself when it's time.
Well, listen, we wish you the very best of luck. As I said, it's like one of the all-time great League of Ireland careers, and you should be very proud of it. I hope it's a celebration now, and you get to lean into those celebrations over the next couple of weeks, because it's a good time for it,
Yeah, great time. I'm out with the lads actually for Christmas party Saturday, so
there you go.
That might be it. But thanks, appreciate it.
Get the meniscus done after that. Brian Gartland there. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Now, we're delighted to be joined by Paralympian Greta Streimikyte. I think I've got that nearly correct. Greta, how are you?
Yes, you did it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. You're here to help promote the Goal Mile, which is proudly supported by AIB. This Christmas, AIB are encouraging communities across the island to step up together and re-establish the tradition of taking part in the Goal Mile. Check out goalmile.org. Why did you get involved in this, Greta?
Why did I decide to take a part of it? Sorry.
Yeah, the Goal Mile is obviously something that it's a long established tradition. Is it? I was just interested in your decision to get involved in helping to promote it.
Yeah, I think it is it's a nice tradition to be. Like you said, it is a nice tradition to be a part of. It's something that we do when we obviously now there's more times to do it, not only during only Christmas Day. There's different days that you can do it as well, and you can find them on the website. But I think it's something nice to do. First of all, to do it with your friends, with the family. You can walk it, you can jog it, you can set a goal. During a certain time per mile. I think it's a nice tradition to be a part of. And then, you do it in the morning and then you sit down, and have your meal and dinner with your family. I think it's something that you can even find as like gathering together, doing something together on a Christmas Day. So I feel like it's a nice thing to do. And then you're doing it for a good cause as well. So I think it ticks the boxes.
Yeah, 100%.
Sport runs in your family, Greta, as well. I know there's a bit of a basketball legend in your family, so sport, I guess, came naturally to you.
Yeah, so my aunt, Greta Streimikyte, she was one of the first Lithuanian female players that played for NBA Indiana, and I think she was always one of the. When I was growing up, I think she was one of those, people that you kind of, I probably didn't realize at the time when I was younger, but she was definitely one of those people that I was like, could I be something when I grow up? Could I be? She's been just incredible, and she still is. And just recently, she actually been rewarded at the Hall of Fame for the basketball and things that she did. So I think it was something that I feel striving for when I was growing up.
Maybe remind people who are unfamiliar with your story, Greta, maybe about your visual impairment and I guess how that led to you becoming one of our Paralympians.
So I think my vision impairment, if we come back to vision impairment, so I would have retinopathy, and that was caused when I was put into incubator. But I think I always say that I was one of those athletes that came to sport quite late, and I actually started running when I came to Ireland, and even a few years after, so when I was 17, and then I just. My PE teacher was like, because it kind of was known that like we kind of loved sport and we're always active, and PE teacher was like, oh Greta, do you want to go ahead and run for the community race in Pantry? And I was like, yes, I'm going to give it a go. And I think that was my first 800 meters. And then after that, the same PE teacher came back to me and was like, oh Greta, would you like to maybe join a club in Pioneers, and then maybe Paralympic Games. And back then I didn't know what the Paralympic Games was, and for me it was a learning journey, and learning about the sport. And then I'll go, I'll train, I'll see how I go. And you do just start with like enjoying the sport and seeing how well you can do, and then a number of years later, here we are.
Like, how important were people in your life? Like, I know you've mentioned before, I think with us maybe, was it Sean Gallagher, your PE teacher? It strikes me that very often for careers like your own, you need someone who kickstarts you or gets you involved in sport, and I guess the role of role models is important.
Yes, I think so. And like, it is, you're so right. Like, when I look back and when I think, like, it's incredible how one person can change direction of your life, because if not a PE teacher, stopping me at the college and saying, oh Greta, there's a community race, would you like to do it? And if I would have never done it, I would have never been where I am today. And if it's not him coming back to me again and saying, Greta, maybe you should join a club, maybe you should join a club, maybe you'll see where it can lead you. Like, if not him, like, I wouldn't be when I am today. And I guess we also can come back to people that we surround ourselves with. Like, it's incredible how much that impacts our life. We can say in sport, incredibly, you grow with people. Let's say I'm with the Dublin Track Club, you grow with the athletes, we develop together, we learn from each other, but also in life as well.
I think that's really important. I think the crossover of the value of sport into general wider society, like you're making the point that somebody needs to help. Everybody needs a little bit of help along the way in whatever career they're going to get, and opportunities too. Specifically though, about the value of role models in Paralympian sport, somebody saying to you early on that this is something that you can get involved in, and you going, well, what is that? Like the curiosity that is inspired, but then somebody needs to know about what the opportunities are. And your visibility as a role model now is something that is actually going to carry on to the next generation as well. So you're kind of building layer on layer, and that's why competing in European Championships and being successful in them and then going to Olympic Games and doing your very best is like you're actually paying something forward to other people who might also have suffered at some point in their lives from a setback or a disability, and it's obviously not just for future Paralympians, but it's for future athletes as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I always look at it as something that I think I started for myself, so I'm doing it because I love the sport. I'm doing it because I want to be as best as I can be. I'm doing it because that's a part of my life at the moment. And I always think about it, if there's somebody that she's like, oh, maybe I saw my aunt being so successful in basketball. Like if they're, let's say, it's a girl, we can see issues in and a girl's not carrying on to, in sports and dropping out and all these kind of stuff. So if there's somebody there that, can say, oh, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can reach the senior level in sports. Yeah. So I think, that only is the icing on the cake, I would like to say. So, but I feel like from my perspective, we always need to start from ourselves, and then, if there's somebody there that sees oh, maybe I can do it too, that's only amazing.
We in Irish sport are very guilty of always looking forward. So the Rugby World Cup, we've been talking about it now for 3 years and it's nearly upon us. The Paris Games in 2024, it's not that far away. And yeah, you know, obviously it is a long-term ambition, but in the medium term and in the short term, you need to make sure that you're doing everything to get there at the absolute peak of your powers. So what's that like, where you've got a long-term goal and every day kind of has to still be lived through, and you still need to make those improvements to make sure that you get to Paris in the right frame of mind and physically in the right condition?
I always been that kind of athlete. I enjoy training. For me, training, I really enjoyed it. For me, like, challenges at training really motivates me. So always like, okay, can I run more miles? Can I lift heavier? Like, for me, it's like, maybe sometimes it's difficult for my coaches, but I'm that kind of athlete. I'm driven by challenges in training. And if I have that, because for me, it's like, okay, like how much more can my body handle? How much, okay, obviously with a bit more miles, more lifts, or all these things that we do, you know, like harder training session. Okay, obviously you need to okay, brother, you need to eat more. You need to, you know, make sure that your sleep is, you know, spot on and all these kind of things. But I feel like that kind of, because I really enjoy, and I'm athlete that I really enjoy training, and I enjoy challenges in training. I know that, you know, like the more you're able to challenge yourself in these situations, you'll be better at races. And obviously then the races come, and, you know, then there's this craft that you need to develop and improve on. And the more races you do, the better you become at it. But because I enjoy that process, for me, I don't really think about it. It just really happens for me naturally.
Greg, can I just ask you finally from me, like the current level, quality level at 1500 metres, especially and middle distance and amongst Irish female athletes is quite incredible. And look, what people might not realise, regardless of your visual impairment, you've been competing in national finals at 1500 metre distance as well. So, I mean, it must be a really positive time in Irish athletics when you see the achievements of the likes of Kieran McGeehan and our other athletes who are competing on the world stage. Oh no, absolutely! It's been such a breakthrough, and it's
it's very motivating, and it's a nice thing to see. Like, we can return and come back to the 800 meters and like how like Nadia Power started running so well, or like Shifa, and all these girls started breaking through 800 meters at the time. PBs were just like changing and all these things. It's incredible to see, athletes doing well, and they're having these massive breakthroughs, even, after years being in sports. And, we all know that we all as an athlete have tough times, and we most of the time have not that great. There's a very small number of those amazing, memorable, fantastic races where you look back as an athlete and say, oh my God, that was something incredible, because there's a lot of aspects that come in that perfect race. But it is, for me personally, it's very motivating and very inspiring to see middle distance and a woman actually go improving so much. And it's going to be very exciting to see what the future holds as well.
What are your plans for Christmas?
So actually, we'll be going to Lithuania for a few days and visiting my family, because I haven't been to Lithuania for 9 years now. So I thought it was time to visit my family for a few days and spend the Christmas with them.
Well, listen, we wish you a great Christmas, and hopefully you'll do the gold mile in Lithuania. Greta Streimikyte, best of luck. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Right, if you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Now, before we go, if you missed anything from Wednesday's OTB AM, you can get it all back on podcast. You'll find all our best stuff from Off the Ball there. The World Cup brief is available in the OTB football feed every morning. OTB Football is where you'll also find a brilliant hour-long chat between Joe and Jonathan Wilson on his new book, Two Brothers, The Life and Times of Bobby and Jackie Charlton. And just a reminder that Monday Night Rugby and tonight's Wednesday Night Rugby are only available to catch in full exclusively in the OTB Rugby podcast feed. It's where you'll also find Chris Jones discussing the sacking of Eddie Jones and the latest episode of the Red 78. Make sure you subscribe to that feed. Before we go, delighted to announce Sean O'Connell has been selected as the winner of today's Leopardstown Christmas Festival, so you can stop crying laughing in our Twitter feeds. For the rest of you, a reminder to tune into OTB AM every day this week for your chance to win 2 hospitality places for the Leopardstown Pavilion. The Leopardstown Christmas Festival obviously takes place from the 26th of December to the 29th. Back tomorrow with Kerry's All-Ireland winning midfielder David Moran. We'll have the return of You Had to Be There alongside the sports broadcaster Lee McKenzie. Shane Hannon will debut Around the World with Hannon. Be sure to tune in for that. And we'll have more from the World Cup, plenty more besides, including the rumours emerging this morning, tweeted by journalist Georgina Robinson, among others, that Scott Robertson is a candidate to join Leinster. Ooh, that is a Christmas present. Right now, though, we're going to leave you with boxing journalist Gareth A. Davies, who spoke on last night's show about the Tyson Fury-Derek Chisora mismatch. Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow.
Now then, very happy to say Mr. Gareth A. Davies is with us, of The Telegraph and Talk Sport and Beyond, a one-man media empire. Gareth, hello, great to have you on.
Well, empirical is a very, very beautiful introduction. I thank you very much, Mr. Malloy, but it's all trench digging and just graft, frankly, at the end of the day, all those platforms that you mentioned.
There is no end, meanwhile, to the popularity of Tyson Fury. So Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you were there at the weekend. People turned out in force to watch a 10th round stoppage against Derek Chisora. Fury, for anyone who didn't catch the fight, Gareth, was as dominant as people anticipated he would be.
Yeah, he was. Tyson Fury kind of gave Derek Chisora something of a most of 10 rounds. It was a kind of slow roasting with cuffing left hooks and uppercuts and switching between orthodox and southpaw, trapping Derek on the ropes and hurting him, staggering him several times. Chisora was never down, but he looked close to being out after 3 or 4 rounds. He looked close to being out after 6 rounds. After 8 rounds, it was a horrible beatdown. And frankly, Don Charles and whoever else was in Derek's corner on the night should really have thrown in the towel. Problem is, Derek's an obdurate and extremely courageous and very brave man. Too brave for his own good, as we say in boxing, Joe. And mercifully, referee Victor Loughlin from Scotland stepped in the 10th round and called a halt to the action with, really having had a very good look at Chisora and having warned his corner at the end of the 9th round. He really wanted to see some fight in the old dog. and if he didn't, he was going to stop the fight. There was criticism before the fight that it was too easy an opponent for Tyson Fury. Fury at 34, I think, is very much approaching his peak now, undefeated now in 34 fights, 2 reigns of heavyweight world champion. You know, he's much more aggressive. He's not the dancing giraffe he once was. He's much more like a bull elephant now when he throws his punches. 6'9", nearly 20 stone. He's a phenomenon. He's got telescopic arms and legs. And he's a problem for anyone. He was always going to be a problem for Derek Chisora, who really didn't have much success beyond, as I say, the second and third round in the fight. It should have been stopped earlier. I always thought it wouldn't go more than 6, 7, 8 rounds, and it shouldn't have gone definitely not more than 8, because at that point it was a brutal enactment. It wasn't nice to see. And I think Fury actually sat back a little bit on Chisora and didn't want to actually destroy him physically. We saw shots of Derek in his dressing room afterwards. In fact, both fighters were there with their children together in Chisora's dressing room afterwards. They shared a Five Guys burger, but Derek said he couldn't even chew it because his jaw hurt so much. But midwinter, outdoors, Spurs Stadium, 60,000 people. I've covered boxing for over 30 years, over 3 decades. Never ever experienced anything like that where we're outside in midwinter. I was working for TalkSport on the broadcast. I managed to get in the ring afterwards. It was a real privilege to be there and interview everyone. Gordon Ramsay and Wayne Rooney alike. I'll come back to that in a minute if you want, especially Rooney. It was what we expected in terms of what we saw in the action, and there's a lot that's come out of it afterwards.
I dare say you're right when you make the observation that Fury held back as the fight continued. Afterwards, he was quoted as saying, maybe they left it in too long. I was very happy when the referee stepped in. And as you alluded to, there was criticism of this fight even in advance. I was reading Donald McRae on the Friday, and he described the fight in prospect as a bleak and disturbing affair. It's a fight that reflects the abject state of boxing. And even Frank Warren himself earlier this year said the only way Tyson Fury fights Chisora again, because they've fought twice previously, is if we are struggling to find an opponent or if Tyson insists on it. Chisora should retire. He shouldn't be allowed anywhere near the ring, let alone in there with Tyson. And 11 months later, there we were on Saturday night, and there have been pieces such as Rick Broadbent in The Times. The headline of his piece, "The battering of a bloody human punch bag will never be a sport," and he described it as a non-contest that made you fear for the loser and his sport. Chisora really needed to be protected from himself here. This sounds like really bleak and an utterly predictably bleak affair. Did you have misgivings as you watched this thing, even in advance?
No. Rick Broadbent is not a boxing guy. I'll say that. And Donald McRae, I didn't see all week, by the way, around the promotion. Now, whether that was his, and I'm not trying to criticise the two men, but Rick Broadbent's got a lot of views on boxing, and has been around boxing 5 minutes, frankly. You can be critical of the event. Let's not forget, and I'm not trying to prop up the event here in any way, but they tried to get Alexander Usyk for that date. He wasn't available. Remember that, yeah? I don't know if they left that out of their copy. They tried to get Anthony Joshua for 6 weeks, if you recall, as well. But Joshua pulled out of that. You go down the list, and you could have perhaps put in there someone like Martin Bakole. Have you ever heard of him, Joe?
No, I haven't seen him fight.
Have you heard of Michael Hunter?
No.
Have you heard of Frank Sanchez?
No.
All these guys are top 10 in the top 10 rankings. Now, when Tyson Fury fought Dillian White in the summer, and we had 90,000 people at Wembley, Dillian White didn't even turn up till Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday of fight week, if you recall. He was deciding that he wasn't taking a part in the pre-fight proceedings. Derek Chisora whether people like it or not, is a cult figure. He's a name. I'm not saying that it was an edifying spectacle to see Derek Chisora get beaten up, but he earned over £3 million for the fight night. Fury earned about 20. I do a series for DAZN, the broadcasters, with boxers called Off the Cuff, where I go narrow and deep with them in a 90-minute, 2-hour interview, which is cut into 15 minutes. And Derek doesn't. He's got 2 young daughters. He wants to put his body on the line to do as much as he can for his kids for as long as he can in the ring. Yes, he's 39 next year. He won't have earned that kind of money. I don't know if he's ever earned that kind of money, frankly, that as much as that. And I'm not speaking for him, but I'm speaking around him here. And even though it's going to take its toll on him, I think he is one of those fighters that is prepared to sacrifice parts of himself as part of his familial legacy.
See, that's we're into deeply uncomfortable territory there, I think. And Frank Warren 11 months ago saying Chisora should retire, and as you say, he is a courageous fighter. But sometimes those people need to be protected from themselves. And I dare say his children would want him around in the fullness of health in 20, 30, 40, 50 years' time, a damn sight more than they might want a few million in the bank, as admirable as his dedication to his family might be. And so to put someone in that position where, they're taking 205 punches from 480 thrown by Fury, and when everybody knew this fight was going to go that way, this sport, as you know better than me, I host a sports show at large. It's not a boxing specific show, so I don't know some of these lesser names that you mentioned. But I do know enough to know that boxing is seriously dangerous, and anything that is dangerous has to be respected. It has to be respected, and this is not respecting the sport and how dangerous the sport is. And that's why it feels deeply troubling. And given the recent events surrounding drug tests, we don't have to get into all that again. But there is such a colossal problem with the regulation of this sport, is there not? Well, what is to stop Chisora going again next year? Nobody and nothing.
Nothing. He might fight Dillian White in a trilogy, and they might go hammer and tongs, and he might earn another $1 million for that. It's up to him.
Sure.
It's up to him. We can't say when a gladiator, when a warrior should stop.
Do you ever think the sport should step in and do that more?
No. Well, if he is, look, he was beaten, bloodied, and bruised after that fight. There's no question. It will take him time to recover. But it's down to the individual to decide that. He's the man that steps into the arena. We're just observers. You should be asking him that question, not me. It's not for me to say whether he should stop or not. I think what we can say is that given that Tyson Fury had beaten him twice before, you can make an argument, why were they stepping in the ring together? But they went down that list at the time.
Yeah.
To go back to what I was saying just a little earlier about, Michael Hunters and the Frank Sanchez and the Martin Bacoli's.
Yeah.
They would have been potential opponents as well. Derek promotes a fight very well. 60,000 people turned out. And I think they turned out for the Tyson Fury show, which is what it is now. And Fury it's about levels in this sport. And Fury is a couple of levels above Chisora. As he showed against Dillian White, it's a couple of levels above Dillian White. Is he a level above Alexander Usyk? Is he a level above Anthony Joshua? He showed himself to be a level above Deontay Wilder, who's a major knockout artist in those 3 fights. But what we did have, and I think apart from Alexander Usyk, I'd say Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce, and we'll come to that if you want, and Anthony Joshua, those 3 guys at the moment in the heavyweight division. Fury, I think, has something to prove against. He didn't really have a lot to prove against Derek Chisora, but believe me, if Tyson Fury had got an injury during that fight, or if he'd wobbled, Derek Chisora would have jumped all over him and knocked him out if he'd had the opportunity. Because then he would have been either facing a rematch with Tyson Fury, probably for treble the money. We're talking about big prize fighting here. And I think we've reached the point, if you want to carry on talking about Derek Chisora and the spectacle, you can, but I think we've reached the point where Tyson Fury is genuinely starting to transcend the sport. I mean, I interviewed, obviously I'm writing for The Telegraph on the night, but I'm also part of the broadcast team for Talk Sport, literally a few feet from the ring apron at most of these big fights. And, there's an hour during the show where I go roving and interviewing people, and I interviewed Gordon Ramsay and Wayne Rooney, and also went into Tyson Fury's dressing room. I have the privilege of being invited inside the dressing room now at most of his fights, for 5-10 minutes for a little chat with him, a few interviews. It's a great insight into what's going on. He's extraordinarily cool inside his dressing room. And I'm not talking about just before he fights Derek Chisora. I'm talking about when he fights Deontay Wilder and others, and when he's got real jeopardy at stake, when he's not an overwhelming favourite. Wayne Rooney said to me that he doesn't think that anyone will ever beat Fury, and he should be knighted, he told me on Saturday night when I interviewed him. Gordon Ramsay says, I've watched Tyson and he's become the people's champion. And it reminded me, when I spoke to Bob Arum ringside, Bob Arum, 92 tomorrow, I think Bob is, who promoted Muhammad Ali in the 60s and 70s, and Hagler and Hearns, and Manny Pacquiao all those years, and loads of legends. Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, promoted all these guys till they went on their own. And he was saying that it does remind him of the days of Muhammad Ali. He said you couldn't have got Muhammad Ali out and 60,000 people there in midwinter in the United States. And it reminded me of, when you have the likes of Rooney wanting to be there and Gordon Ramsay wanting to be there. These are very, very big figures from sports and entertainment. It reminds me of, you might know this, 1971, Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier, the fight of the century at Madison Square Garden, Manhattan, New York. And Burt Lancaster, you may be too young to remember who Burt Lancaster was, but he was a Hollywood star. He did colour commentary. Frank Sinatra worked for Life magazine as a photographer on the ring apron that night because they wanted to be close to the action. And I think Tyson Fury's narrative now, and I'm going to throw it back at you, Frank Warren reckons there's an argument that Tyson Fury's the UK or Britain's biggest sports star since David Beckham, and I don't know what you think about that.
He is certainly right up there. There is no doubt, and we can park the Chisora fight because I would just be labouring the point were we to go back into it. Everybody can make up their own mind. I thought it was a touch unedifying when it was so predictable, but as you said, there is informed consent here.
Yeah, don't blame the promoter. Blame the corner. Those are the people looking after Derek Chisora. Those are his family, in the corner. They should have thrown the towel in after about 7 rounds, and then we wouldn't even be having this discussion. And that's what they should have done.
Fair enough. We can apportion blame. I'm not even looking to do that. It's just I wanted to get your sense of it as a spectacle. But on Fury, there is no doubt that there's something phenomenal happening here. I mean, that 60,000 turned up knowing that they were going to see almost a procession. There was very little jeopardy, and they still turned up and they still paid their money. And I don't know, you'd have a better feel for this, what a standard attendance would be at a boxing fight in London, even mid-range. Like, are these hardcore boxing fans, or is this just a Fury phenomenon? I think it's a Fury phenomenon, actually. I quite agree. They might turn up to hear him read from his autobiography, for all I know.
In 2022, we have had 150,000 fans turn out in 2 stadium fights, as we will for Katie Taylor next year. Let's talk about her in a bit, please. I would love to talk about Katie Taylor tonight, if we can, as well. When you have huge stars in boxing, people want to be there to say, I was there when. I was there that night. I went to one of his outdoor fights. But the phenomenon for me, Joe, is that 60,000 people turned out, and it might have been flaming snowing on the night, and it's an open air stadium. This is a phenomenon. This is a guy I've seen the cameras around. I've been part of it. I've been there when I've done several interviews with him. Got Netflix filming him for a series that's going out next summer. He's going to be even bigger. He's got his third book out at the moment. That's gone to the top of the bestseller list again, or whatever bestseller list it is. He's got drinks and food snacks coming out, and this is a big, rough, tough traveller, by the way, from 10 generations of bare-knuckle fighters with mental health problems who is talking out openly about them. This is a guy that's stepping into the WWE every now and again. Everybody wants a bit of him. But I tell you something about him, having spent a lot of time around him. Yes, he rants and raves, and I could never see him. In fact, I did say to him, I sent him a message earlier on today, I did send him a message about Wayne Rooney saying that he should be knighted, that Rooney had said to me. He sent me a love heart back over the message, saying, I like that. He liked it back to me. It wasn't a public message. I don't think he'd ever accept a knighthood. He's not that kind of guy. Remember what happened around BBC Sports Personality of the Year? He's kind of a subversive counterculture hero in lots of ways. Yes. Is the way I'd put him. He's not the mainstream. Weirdly, Anthony Joshua, his big British rival in my view, is the mainstream. It's a fascinating narrative. I feel very privileged to be so close to it. And, I was there at Tyson's debut in 2008 on the undercard of Carl Froch and Jean Pascal in Nottingham, and I've known his family the whole time, stayed in a caravan with him for a couple of days in the build-up to the Klitschko fight. I followed the entire journey to the point where going out to see him in Marbella when he was 28 stone and running on the beach with him for 6 miles. I could keep up with him, thank God, then, because he was 28 stone. And, it's a weird phenomenon. And yet, my experience of him, yes, he has these random days and he rants and raves and he'll take the mickey and he'll try and send you up. He tries to send me up saying, no, I'm emigrating to Australia and testing me to see if I'll put the story out. But I know when he's sending me up. But he's also, I've done several nights on stage with Tyson Fury as the MC with him, interviewing him and taking questions from the crowd. And he's very good with people, he has a gentility about him. So he's a lot of different things. And I wrote a column last week saying, let's make the most of him while he's here. Please make the most of him, because he's probably only got 3 fights left. And they're probably Alexander Usyk, Joe Joyce and Anthony Joshua. I don't think there's anyone else for him to fight. I don't know if you agree with me. Maybe one of those fights will be twice, one of those opponents twice, but I don't see him having more than 3 or 4 fights.
He had an interesting line about where he is as a fighter. So 2023, he's going to fight Usyk. I think that much is fairly clear. Yeah. And I saw him speaking to you at the ring afterwards, and Joe Joyce may well get a look in as well. Yeah. Fury said of his fighting style now, and you mentioned he could well be at his peak. So he said, I'm not the same reflex fighter I once was. I've changed my style. I'm a bit smarter, a bit cuter. I'm doing more damage with my punches. Before Sugar Hill, I was erratic, all over the place. So even he feels like he's in a pretty special place. He said, I have slowed down now. Everything has been slowed down to cause maximum damage. So you were talking to Usyk as well. How do you see this Usyk Joshua fighting? Is it going to be in the first half of 23? It's starting to sound that way. You mean Usyk Fury fight? Yes. What did I say, Joshua? Yes. Oh yeah. We know how that goes. Yeah. There's as much need for another Chisora Fury fight, I think, as that one. So, Fury against Usyk. Fury Usyk or Usyk Fury Usyk or Usyk Fury. Yes, I mean it's a fantastic fight. It's an undisputed fight if they keep all the belts together. I think it's a real chess match. I mean, I think Tyson Fury isn't the elusive fighter that wibbled and wobbled against Vladimir Klitschko 7 years ago and fiddled his way to victory by being elusive and being quicker to the jab and nullifying Klitschko's jab and right hand, as he was very successful with. He liked to fire the right hand off successive jabs. He took Klitschko's jab away that night in Dusseldorf 7 years ago. It was majestic,
even though it wasn't the most thrilling fight, but it was wonderful to be there ringside that night and around him during the week. He is a different fighter now. Sugar Hill Stewart, the Kronk style, the Manny Stewart style that was created, where you look for your power punches and look for the openings. It's definitely there now. I think Usyk is very elusive, and he's a southpaw. He could pop shot Tyson Fury, could find angles to hit Tyson Fury. He's a much smaller man. That's his problem. I think if he was 6'6", 6'7", it might be a different kind of fight, and he was a stone and a half heavier.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating